So someone dug up an ancient ruin, unleashing a red mist that drives people mad, while everything else mutates into monsters called aberrants, leaving our boy standing alone in the wreckage. And these new creatures are tearing cities apart, so naturally the military decides to step in, launching missiles right into the disaster zone. But a girl named Zio Zuz gets tossed aside, right into the path of a monster wolf, and he completely loses it, screaming her name. He absolutely explodes, his arm warping into a weapon to shred the wolves, and after the carnage, he is left standing alone, bleeding and transformed the rage, finally leaving him exhausted in the ruined city. With glowing eyes, he desperately whispers Zio Zu's name, stumbling through the rubble, calling out for her, until he spots her doll lying abandoned on the ground, and he just collapses, his hope completely shattered. He reaches for the only thing left of her. A single bloody tear tracing his utter despair, screaming her name into the empty, desolate ruins. Rewind 3 days, and the news is calling the red mist a natural phenomenon. Our boy and Zio Zu are just trying to get through traffic, when a soldier suddenly bangs on their window, screaming to get out, revealing a full-blown military lockdown on the highway, which makes the driver realize the government is totally lying. As chaos erupts, he just tries to keep Zio Zu calm. But then the mist straight up consumes a military helicopter, and an explosion rocks the bridge right above them, sending the entire car into a state of shock, so he immediately shoves her down to protect her from the impact. The car gets absolutely wrecked by the falling debris, and our boy wakes up, immediately checking on his parents. Turns out his dad's leg is completely pinned in the driver's seat, while his mom is just trying to process the nightmare unfolding. That is when a massive aberrant shows up, sending everyone scattering, so his dad screams for them to get out and run now. He's not going anywhere with his leg crushed like that, so the kid grabs Zio Zu and pulls her from the car. His dad tells him to save his sister and forget them, but he refuses, right as another monster starts tearing into survivors nearby. His mom shoves him away, screaming for him to run, while his dad tells him to man up and protect his sister. Just before a monster's attack completely obliterates the car, and the mutated wolf responsible lets out a victory roar, leaving him to scream for his parents, holding Zio Zu tight, but the aberrant is already locking onto its next meal. As it closes in, Zio Zu tries to push him away to save him, right as a massive dragon thing takes out a helicopter overhead, revealing the entire city has gone completely insane, so he grabs his sister and just starts running for their lives. That same mutated wolf is still prowling the streets, forcing him and Zio Zu to hide in a store. He stays absolutely still, waiting for an opening, and watches as the monster finally moves on, letting them breathe a sigh of relief. But then Zio Zu suddenly screams in agony as red cracks start spreading across her face. She tells him she feels incredibly sick, and he realizes they have inhaled too much red mist. He grabs some water, desperate to help her somehow. He tries to help her cover up, but then the same red cracks erupt on his face and he collapses as some weird energy pours out of him. He plays it off like he is fine, but he is losing control, which is just terrible timing because guess who is back? The exact same wolf aberrant that killed their parents. It locks eyes with them through the glass and they are busted, so he grabs Zio Zu and screams for them to run for it. They burst out of the supermarket, making a desperate break, right as a massive winged monster dives down from above. With the wolf aberrant bearing down, Zio Zu is terrified, so he just pulls her close, promising to protect her. Meanwhile, that winged monster is absolutely wrecking the skyline, sparking a full-on aberrant turf war in the streets. He realizes they are completely trapped between monsters, making a split-second call to dive back into the store. Figuring it is their only shot, he grabs a metal pipe, and with a desperate scream, he takes a wild swing. The pipe shatters right across the monster's face, which of course only makes it angrier. With no other options, he shoves his hands right into its jaws, actually managing to stagger the beast for a moment. Zio Zu grabs a fire extinguisher ready to jump in, but he just screams at her to run for it. He keeps the monster's attention focused squarely on him, right as his body starts giving out from the infection. The red mist energy surges, and he is losing control fast just as Zio Zu trips right in the aberrant's path. As the wolf lunges, a strange armored hand blocks the attack, and a massive red blade impales the monster from nowhere. Turns out the savior was him, completely lost to the rage, screaming for the monster to just die already, driving his new blade into the wolf again and again. Zio Zu can only watch in horror at what he has become, grabbing him from behind, begging him to stop. His mind flashes back to his mom screaming for him to run, and his dad telling him to be a man for his sister. Their final wish was for him and Zio Zu to survive, which snaps Zio Hao right back to the present moment, leaving him to face his absolutely terrified sister. Back in his right mind, Zio Hao apologizes for scaring his sister half to death, but just as he says he is fine, the reflection reveals the winged aberrant is still there. The turf war from earlier comes crashing back down, with the beast grabbing the dead wolf, and now it is diving straight for them with its claws out, prompting Zio Hao to grab a pipe and start screaming insults at the giant monster. He yells for it to stay away from his sister, ready to go down swinging, when some red-haired guy with a glowing sword suddenly blocks the attack out of nowhere. The newcomer tells them to hide while he deals with the aberrants, which is just fantastic timing. But Zio Hao knows the monster is fixated on them and decides he has to lure it away himself. Zio Zu clings to him, terrified he will lose control and transform into a monster again. Zio Hao tries to reassure his sister, promising he will not lose control of his powers this time, pulling her close and telling her to wait right there while he handles business, but Zio Zu just begs him to promise he will come back to her safely. And with a confident smile, he swears he will absolutely make it back for her. With that settled, he turns to face the danger, his dark aura flaring up. He has realized that hunting aberrants and absorbing their energy is the secret to getting stronger, and this massive horned beast looks like the perfect power-up to protect his family. So he screams for the monster to just die already, ready for the fight of his life. Only for the aberrant to completely ignore him and roar at something else, which is just insulting. Infuriated at being dismissed, he decides he will just have to kill his way to get its attention. He takes a desperate swing at the wolf aberrant with a metal pipe, but the monster just chomps down on his arm, refusing to let go, so he completely snaps, his arms mutating as he rips the beasts in half. He is completely lost in the rush, reveling in the incredible power surging through him. Right as the massive, winged aberrant from before swoops down from the sky, landing in the street to face off against another spiky monster. The transformation suddenly fades, leaving Xiao Hao staring at his hands, totally bewildered, and that is when the military's solution comes screaming down from above. Xiao Zhu rushes out to check on him, but he just screams for her to get back inside, right as the entire area is completely engulfed in a massive explosion. A military chopper finally shows up, spotting survivors in the absolute chaos below, and their brilliant rescue plan is to grab Xiao Zhu but leave Xiao Hao behind since he is infected. As they drag her onto the helicopter, the soldiers are already panicking about more monsters showing up, leaving him to watch in horror as the chopper flies away with his sister inside, and in the heart of the explosion, he hallucinates Xiao Zhu asking why he abandoned her. The vision screams at him for not saving her as she is completely engulfed by the blast, so he just roars her name, his own transformed body being torn apart by the fire. Which is when Xiao Hao snaps awake, gasping for air back in the present day, realizing it is the same damn nightmare he has been having for the last 6 months. He grabs a rifle, relieved his little episode did not blow his cover with his new companions. Turns out Xiao Hao spent the last 6 months searching every shelter for Xiao Zhu to no avail, so he joined the army's border patrol, figuring it is the only way to get intel and move freely. The lands him at the Kishi City border outpost, a lovely little slice of post-apocalyptic paradise. He immediately reports to his new captain Jia Jun, apologizing for being late for his shift, and his warm welcome is a swift kick from the captain for being a useless rookie, who then tells him to get on watch until the big shots arrive, or he will make his life hell. From his post, Xiao Hao stares out at the mysterious crimson spire that rose with the red fog, thinking about the survivors stuck on the borderlands while wondering if a certain someone is still out there. Down below, his captain is already on a smoke break, convinced the elite special response unit has it covered. And the rest of the squad agrees, since there is no way the famous unit would ever fail. Right, turns out the elite unit has been absolutely crushing aberrants on their way over, while Xiao Hao reflects on how the crimson fog just brings out the worst in everything. He is lost in thought about the fog's maddening effects when he notices it is starting to part, and it is not just clearing up, something massive is charging straight for their outpost. A soldier below spots the disturbance and tries to warn his completely useless captain, but Jia Jun just tells him to shut up, right before seeing a literal wave of red mist. Meanwhile, the special response unit is sprinting through the ruins, looking like total pros until that same crimson wave slams into them, sending the elites flying like ragdolls. Jia Jun can only watch in absolute horror as his backup gets completely wiped out. And he screams for a retreat as one of his own men gets impaled from behind. As one of the soldiers gets cornered by a massive aberrant, he is pretty sure it is game over, but Xiao Hao just calmly watches the rest of the squad scatter in terror from above, before deciding this is the perfect time to leap right into the middle of the fight where a massive energy blade suddenly slams down, intercepting the monster's attack. And it turns out our boy is the one dishing out the punishment, already counting his first kill. With one aberrant down, he is already sizing up his next target, immediately lunging at another one and counting it as his second takedown, plunging his transformed hand right into the beast to absorb its energy, and he can feel himself getting stronger from the power-up, a very welcome side effect, which just makes him eager to fight the half-dozen other monsters now surrounding him. Xiao Hao is fully powered up, ready to take on the entire aberrant horde himself when a massive purple energy beam suddenly vaporizes the monsters right in front of him. He whips around to see who stole his kills, spotting a woman with a high-tech rifle, and it is none other than Detachment Captain Song Rui, who does not look impressed. Xiao Hao immediately panics, realizing she is from the Elite Special Response Unit, which means he has to ditch his monster form before they classify him as a target. Unfortunately for him, the captain just gave her squad a simple order: leave no one alive. Her soldiers instantly surround Xiao Hao, who has thankfully managed to look human again, and he throws his hands up, desperately trying to explain he is on their side right as a massive aberrant looms up behind him, ready to attack them all. With the aberrant suddenly gone, the soldiers just confirm the target is eliminated, leaving Xiao Hao to surrender. But Captain Song Rui immediately questions how a nobody like him has access to their weapon, before ordering a full withdrawal to a new defensive line, and our boy knows he is completely screwed. Back at their temporary base, the entire area is on total lockdown under Song Rui's direct orders, where she reviews the casualty report, a staggering 30 patrolmen dead versus only 2 of her elites. And now it is time for Xiao Hao's very own private interrogation, which is just a fantastic turn of events, as he is tied to a chair demanding to know why he is being detained when he is a victim too. But Song Rui points out he conveniently disappeared for 2 hours right before the attack broke out. He tries to bluff his way out, claiming he was just napping in the ruins with his captain's permission, right as one of his squad mates rats him out for being a slacker who always gets a pass. Xiao Hao gives his squad mate a death glare, warning him to shut his mouth or he will shut it for him, and Captain Song Rui just watches the drama, noting that this patrol team is a complete disaster, while elsewhere the red-haired swordsman is laid up in a medical bed, somehow getting a clean bill of health. But back in the hot seat, Song Rui points out Xiao Hao is a rookie who survived a fight that killed her elites. He plays the coward, claiming he was a track star who is just really good at running away, which she does not buy for a second, demanding to know why a coward would join the army at all. In his head, he admits he has been hunting aberrants for 6 months, learning to control his powers while looking for Xiao Zhu. Living like a lone wolf and scouring every last ruin and settlement for any sign of his sister. Song Rui cuts right through his act, accusing him of abandoning his post and withholding information, so with his hands cuffed, he just asks if she is planning on executing him right here and now. Song Rui leans in close, asking what is up with his hands, clearly not buying his story, and she demands to know why he is lying and what his real objective is for being there. Before he can even answer, a massive tremor suddenly shakes the entire military base, and while she thinks it is an earthquake, Xiao Hao recognizes that feeling immediately. He screams for everyone to run, warning them a huge horde of aberrants is coming, but Song Rui just assumes he is trying to make a run for it right in front of her. Absolutely furious at being ignored, she slams him to the ground with a crackle of purple energy. And her own soldiers can only watch as she completely loses it on the cuffed prisoner. At that exact moment, the entire floor gives way, sending them all plummeting into darkness, leaving them stranded in a massive underground cavern with no idea where they are. Xiao Hao wakes up cuffed on the ground, realizing they have all fallen into a massive cavern, and Captain Song Rui, completely unfazed, just orders her soldiers to get some lights on. His squad mate immediately starts blaming him for being a disaster, but Xiao Hao just tells him to survive first. One of the elites fires up a powerful light stick, illuminating their brand new problem. They have landed in a sprawling maze of tunnels apparently dug out by aberrants. Song Rui wastes no time, telling everyone to stay calm and check their weapons, taking point with her rifle while ordering the squad to hold formation and cover each other. That is when Xiao Hao senses a breeze, telling the others there might be a way out. So the loudmouth soldier rushes ahead, sarcastically calling him a first-class escape artist. He spots a light and screams about an exit, right as Xiao Hao sees the monster and yells to get down. Just as the monster lunges, it gets zapped by purple lightning and sliced in half, splattering corrosive acid all over the ground right where the soldier was sitting. Song Rui warns everyone about the acid, then glares at Xiao Hao for acting on his own. She notes he is suspiciously good at avoiding danger, which is definitely not a compliment. And calling him Yan Hao, she says he's got a lot of explaining to do once they escape. Before he can even process that, a strange rumbling sound echoes through the cavern. Turns out it is the sound of more beetle aberrants crawling out of the woodwork. And soon enough, an entire swarm is pouring out from holes in the walls. The squad is completely surrounded by the horde, their escape route totally cut off, so one of the elites just opens fire, bullets ricocheting off their armored shells. With their bullets doing absolutely nothing, the squad just makes a mad dash through the cavern, and Song Rui yells at everyone to keep running, but Xiao Hao suddenly stops in his tracks, pointing out that the insect swarm has mysteriously stopped chasing them, which is never a good sign. Ahead of them lies a massive open chamber, and the reason for the swarm's retreat becomes clear. Turns out a massive tyrant-class aberrant is just chilling there, literally inhaling the red mist. Its eyes flare as it condenses all that mist into a single, terrifying point of energy, and Xiao Hao realizes it is a weapon, screaming for everyone to watch out for the dangerous beast. Not wasting a second, Song Rui leaps into the air, crackling with her signature purple lightning, right as the monster unleashes a colossal red energy beam straight from its glowing maw, and her supercharged lightning blast collides head-on with the aberrant's death ray. Song Rui's lightning gets completely overpowered by the monster's beam, and Xiao Hao screams for her to get out of the way, shoving her aside just as the red energy blast tears right through her defenses. He takes the full hit, his arm transforming to absorb the energy while promising to explain later. With both arms now mutated, he stares down the tyrant, ready for a real fight, leaving Song Rui wondering how he can handle what her best attacks could not even scratch. He just gives her a confident smirk, completely unfazed by the impossible odds, then turns to the monster, his arm a massive claw, and tells it to bring it on. He recognizes it as a tyrant class, a rank just below Behemoth and Calamity, and he smashes his claw into its face, already thinking about the power-up he is about to get. Xiao Hao squares up against the tyrant, whose armored hide barely even registered his last punch, and he realizes this thing is ridiculously tough, unlike any normal aberrant he has fought before. Turns out its massive size makes it less of a monster and more of a walking armored tank. So as the beast takes a swing, he figures it got this big by cannibalizing its own kind, but he effortlessly dodges the attack, mocking the monster for being way too slow for him, realizing it is just a big, dumb moving target with all its stats dumped into defense. So his arm erupts into tendrils, latching onto the beast while his squad mates' bullets just bounce off. The soldier cannot believe his eyes, since this is the same Yan Hao who is famous for running away. And his squadmate is absolutely floored, wondering how the biggest coward he knows is suddenly a monster slayer. But Captain Song Rui connects the dots, concluding he is a secret government weapon designed to kill aberrants. The squadmate cannot believe it, but Song Rui confirms their resident coward is a top-secret combat experiment, revealing he escaped from a lab, and now she is wondering if he caused the last red mist outbreak. She warns him this is highly classified information, so he'd better keep his mouth shut about it. Meanwhile, the tyrant is charging up a massive ball of pure crimson energy, and it unleashes a devastating wave of destruction right at Xiao Hao, who realizes the blast is about to wipe out the entire squad behind him. So he screams for them to get the hell away from him now. The red energy sphere expands, completely engulfing the entire cavern in a massive explosion. And after the blast, Song Rui is left kneeling, her purple lightning flaring as she catches her breath. The loudmouth soldier is just lying there, absolutely shocked that he is somehow still alive. The loudmouth soldier rushes to Captain Song Rui's side, finding her injured in the aftermath, and he is completely floored that an elite would sacrifice her leg to save a lowly patrolman like him. He argues she should not have risked her combat ability when her mission is to kill aberrants. But she gives a whole hero speech about being humanity's shield, which leaves him speechless. At that exact moment, a volley of massive spikes slams into the ground right beside them, and it turns out Xiao Hao is completely out of juice, his transformation fading away fast. The tyrant aberrant is still standing, completely unfazed by the massive explosion it just tanked, and with a furious roar, it prepares to finish off the exhausted survivors for good. Just as it lunges, a massive blast of purple lightning slams right into its face, and Xiao Hao realizes Captain Song Rui, despite her injuries, is still very much in the fight. Song Rui unleashes a lightning shot, screaming that Xiao Hao cannot die until he spills his secrets, and her supercharged blast slams right into the tyrant's face, crackling with purple energy, but the monster just laughs it off, which is a horrifying new development for the captain. Turns out the tyrant is just summoning a massive wave of red mist from deeper in the caves, using the tunnels to pull in energy and instantly start regenerating all its wounds. She realizes it'll be back at full power in seconds, making their situation completely hopeless, so she tells him to run, but Xiao Hao refuses, insisting this thing has to die today. He realizes the monster cannot move while it is healing, giving them the perfect opening to strike. But she warns him that if this desperate plan fails, he is absolutely going to die here, and he just smirks, saying he has faced death countless times and is ready for one more round. Song Rui agrees to the desperate plan, her rifle crackling with purple lightning, explaining she will pour all her power into one shot to crack the monster's head armor, giving Xiao Hao the one and only opening he needs to go straight for the brain. As the tyrant roars, she unleashes the supercharged blast right at its face, which connects with a massive explosion as Xiao Hao dives in for the kill. The shot works perfectly, shattering the head armor and exposing the beast's weak spot, so with a furious scream, he unleashes a flurry of tendrils right into the opening, impaling the tyrant's brain and causing a massive spray of corrosive green fluid. Song Rui watches, completely spent, wondering if their Hail Mary actually worked. But the resulting explosion sends Xiao Hao flying backwards, his hands completely shredded. The tyrant finally goes down, impaled by a massive blade as Song Rui catches her breath, and she immediately rushes over to check on Xiao Hao, screaming his name to see if he is alive. Finding him unconscious on the ground, she notices he dropped something in the chaos, which turns out to be a photo, leaving her to wonder what is so important about it. At that exact moment, a strange crystal shard from the dead monster falls right into his hand, piercing his palm and sending his mind into a strange void where he sees his own beast form. He realizes he has completely lost control, wondering if this is hell or his life flashing before his eyes, when a glowing DNA strand in his vision suddenly fires off a beam of pure energy, and the crystal shard embeds itself right in his chest, shockingly giving him back control of his body. He can feel a new power humming inside him, his eyes returning to normal as he wakes up. He's trying to figure out how the tyrant's energy core just embedded itself in his chest, and it turns out the crystal is actively absorbing the red mist, basically turning him into a power battery. He realizes it is a built-in safety switch, storing the mist so he will not go full monster mode again, which means he can finally go all out absorbing aberrants without fear of losing his mind. He is thrilled about the upgrade until he realizes the crystal has a very limited storage capacity, and at the rate it is sucking in energy, the whole thing is about to straight up explode. Remembering the tyrant's big attack, he figures he can just burn off the excess energy himself, which brings us to him in a medical bed, still overflowing with power as the mist keeps pouring in. With a look of pure focus, he decides to take control of the situation, screaming as he forces all that volatile energy to converge right into the palm of his hand. Song Rui can only stare as Xiao Hao's hands glow with dangerously unstable red energy, and while she is demanding to know what he is doing, he is a little busy not exploding. He just screams for her to get out of the way, preparing to unleash all that raw power, and fires a massive energy beam right out the window, blowing a hole in the building across the street. Flashing back 5 minutes, Song Rui is told the red-haired swordsman's leg is a total loss, and the swordsman, Deputy Lin, immediately asks about Xiao Hao, doubting the whole test subject story. She shuts him down hard, telling him the kid's case is top secret and he should just focus on recovering. Then she drops the bomb that she has already requested his transfer to a desk job at headquarters. She even adds that she will be reporting the whole mess to his father, the chief of staff, for the final call, and when he pushes back, she just revokes his comms and orders him to stay put, which is just cold. Back in the medical ward, Captain Song Rui is on a mission to find Xiao Hao, and she is led straight to his room, number 314. She orders her subordinate to stand guard, making it clear this is a private conversation. But the second she opens the door, she is greeted by a face full of unstable energy, finding Xiao Hao completely overwhelmed by the power surging from the crystal in his chest. As she demands to know what is happening, he just screams for her to get out of the way, forcing her to dive for cover as he completely loses control of the blast. The poor guard outside gets absolutely rocked by the shockwave as the wall explodes, and the massive red beam tears straight through the building and into the city. Meanwhile, Deputy Lin sees the aftermath, realizing how long Song Rui can possibly hide the truth. The poor guard is left wondering why he is always the unlucky one after that little room-clearing blast, and Song Rui recognizes the attack as the tyrant's, baffled how he can use aberrant powers without any gear. She stares him down, demanding to know exactly what he is and how he is pulling this off. Up on the roof, Xiao Hao explains his new powers next to the scorch mark from his little outburst. She clarifies that he can absorb an aberrant's core and literally steal its abilities, which is a new one. He adds that the crystal also stores the red mist and can even repair itself, making him a walking battery. Song Rui is clearly intrigued, calling his abilities features like she is reading a spec sheet. He admits there is a catch. While he gets their power, he is also slowly turning into one of them. With his humanity on the line, he asks her what she sees when she looks at him now. She calls him a one-of-a-kind existence, saying whether he is a monster depends entirely on his choices. Song Rui tells him his power is both a weapon and a disaster, laying out his two options: join her elite squad as a reserve or be classified as a threat and eliminated just like the aberrants. He just scoffs, questioning if the troops in the city could even pull that off, and she admits that while she cannot handle him alone, the entire unit is another story. She sweetens the deal, offering him status, intel, and resources if he joins up. But Xiao Hao is suspicious, wondering why she'd go to such lengths to recruit him. She confirms he is smart, admitting she needs him for a specific reason but is not his enemy. To prove it, she suggests he think of their deal as a simple transaction, and pulls out the photo he dropped earlier, leaving him completely stunned. He's completely floored when she pulls out the one photo he has of his sister, and she offers to use her elite squad's resources to find Xiao Zhu if he joins up. Xiao Hao knows he has hit a wall searching on his own, making her offer incredibly tempting. So he agrees to the deal, realizing military rank is his best shot at getting real intel. He takes the photo back, then cheekily asks for a pay raise since he is so valuable, and Song Rui does not even blink, officially making him a reserve soldier with top-tier benefits. She immediately tells him to get lost and go file his transfer paperwork like a good rookie. As he turns to leave, she stops him for one last little detail, casually mentioning she paid for the massive hole he blew in the hospital earlier. And of course, she will be deducting it from his salary, leaving him absolutely speechless. Xiao Hao heads out, already dreading the massive repair bill he is now stuck paying off, while Song Rui watches him go, convinced he is the key to turning aberrants back into humans. Back at the patrol garrison, our boy is just trying to process his very sudden career change when his old loudmouth squadmate pulls up. Completely shocked, he is also joining the special unit. The guy is suddenly his best friend, saying they can look out for each other now that he is a big shot, but Xiao Hao just tries to remember his name, realizing he never once cared who this dude was. His former squadmate then waves over to their old captain Jia Jun, who apparently survived the whole ordeal, but when Xiao Hao looks over, he sees his former captain is in the middle of a tense confrontation. A new meathead is taunting the injured Jia Jun about some past beef involving a woman he defended. Right before the city's defense captain kicks him for daring to ask for a dead soldier's pension. The loudmouth squadmate charges in to defend his captain, all guts and absolutely zero backup. He is immediately slammed to the ground, proving that yelling does not actually win fights. The defense captain then grabs Jia Jun, demanding he get on his knees and lick his shoes, even threatening to break the squadmate's arm and give it back as a crutch, which is just charming. Jia Jun is clearly torn, weighing his own pride against the safety of his subordinate, and he actually starts to kneel, ready to swallow his pride to protect his man. But just as he is about to give in, Xiao Hao steps in and stops him cold, smiling as he says it is finally his turn to repay the favor for past kindnesses. He then steps forward, promising to break the bones of anyone who dares touch his old captain, leaving the defense captain's goons completely stunned by the rookie's sudden death threat. The goons charge in, screaming that our boy is about to get himself killed, but Xiao Hao just gives them a cold stare, completely unimpressed by the show of force. He starts a little countdown, effortlessly dropping the first guy with a brutal kick, then immediately follows up with a swift elbow to the second guy's jaw, and a third goon gets a boot right to the stomach for his trouble, before he finishes his 4-second workout with a punch to the last man standing. The final goon gets absolutely launched, slamming into the pavement hard, leaving the entire squad completely wiped out on the ground in a matter of seconds. The defense captain is just stunned, realizing the rookie dismantled his crew in 4 seconds flat. So he pulls a gun, screaming at Xiao Hao for daring to challenge the city guard. Xiao Hao just smirks, telling the captain to trust him as bullets harmlessly fly right past. And before the guy can even react, he grabs the gun while mocking his pathetic firing speed, crushing the entire weapon in his hand like it is made of cheap plastic, then tossing the scrap aside, noting this guy's firepower is not even a fraction of Song Rui's. In a desperate lunge, the captain pulls a knife, which Xiao Hao blocks without even trying, effortlessly disarming him again and taking the blade for himself with a cold stare. He hoists the captain clean off the ground, calmly asking if this was the guy who wanted Jia-jun to kneel, and the tough guy's act completely vanishes as he starts choking out panicked warnings. But our boy just holds him there, letting the absolute terror sink in for a moment. Before declaring it is his turn and slamming the captain face first into the pavement, Xiao Hao leaves the defense captain embedded in the pavement, a very productive end to their little chat. The remaining goons are just trying to process how he dodged actual bullets like it was nothing, and our boy is equally surprised, realizing his new power-up is way stronger than he expected. With their boss out cold, the rest of the squad wisely decides to run for their lives, leaving his old squadmate to run up and praise him like he is some kind of war god. Captain Jia-jun thanks him for the save, but Xiao Hao just says he is finally returning the favor, though Jia-jun is still worried the entire city defense force will come back for revenge, until the loudmouth reveals they are both in the elite unit now, making them completely untouchable. Over at the Special Response Unit's temporary base, the paperwork is already being pushed through, where Song Rui confirms she has officially sent his application to join the team straight to headquarters. Song Rui confirms his application has been approved, but only for the next stage of assessment, and when he asks if he is officially in, she tells him not to get ahead of himself. Turns out the real test is an entry assessment at the main headquarters in Hacheng, where he will be trying out for the elite Blazing Blood Combat Division, already promising to set a new record. Soon enough, their military convoy is rolling into the sprawling city of Hacheng for the big day, with the whole squad loaded up in armored vehicles as they make their way to the base. Inside, Song Rui explains this is the capital and home to the Blazing Blood headquarters, and as Xiao Hao asks about warrior ranks, another soldier starts mocking the guy next to him, who just laughs it off when the loudmouth questions how a weakling is taking the combat assessment. Until Song Rui clarifies he is joining the logistics team, so no combat test is needed. The logistics guy is suddenly Xiao Hao's best friend, offering to give him a crash course on how things work, and it turns out anyone with powers is called a warrior, ranked from S-class gods down to E-class grunts. The aberrants have their own threat levels, starting with the Scout, Hound, and Overlord-class monsters. And then you have the city-wrecking behemoth and the world-ending calamity-class nightmares. The matchups are pretty straightforward, with each warrior rank expected to handle a specific aberrant threat level, but your rank also depends on your beast core affinity, which definitely gets Xiao Hao's attention. Apparently, humans can awaken their own powers by attuning to an aberrant's core to create special armaments. But Song Rui clarifies that if you have 0 affinity, you are stuck as an E-rank grunt for life. Just as they are processing this info dump, their military convoy screeches to a sudden halt, because a guard is blocking the road, telling them the entire street is completely closed off. The convoy gets stopped by some guards who claim the road is closed for official business, daring to block the elite unit. Turns out the roadblock is courtesy of the Green Vine Group, a name that definitely rings a bell for our captain. Song Rui immediately realizes a big shot from that group is here for the same assessment, which feels very suspicious. An hour later, all the recruits are lined up for a classic Welcome to Hell speech from the head examiner. The rank warrior Lin Yongsan starts laying down the law about how blazing blood is humanity's last hope. He gives a whole speech about not tolerating special treatment, so everyone better play by his rules or get out. With the pep talk over, he kicks off the first event, the physical assessment, telling them all to get moving. First up is a weighted dash, where one guy clocks in at a blistering 5.1 seconds, setting a high bar. Next, another recruit casually one-hands a 500 kg dumbbell, leaving the other hopefuls completely stunned. The final test is a striking power machine, where they get to show off just how hard they can punch. One of the recruits punches the striking machine so hard it just completely breaks, unable to even calculate his score. 10 minutes later, the head examiner gets the final report that all physical assessments are officially finished. He confirms the results from his subordinate, ready to announce the top score of the day. Turns out the machine breaker scored 198 points, absolutely demolishing the old rookie record of 140. Another recruit immediately starts screaming about cheating, right as a new challenger steps up to the instructor. The guy, Zhangjin Kishi, questions how the score could be so high, and he is the defense captain's brother. The examiner snaps back that he watched the whole thing on camera, asking if he is being accused of favoritism. Zhang just gives a smug smile, claiming he is just curious and would never dare make such an accusation. He then turns to Xiao Hao, confirming he is the guy from the Kishi City Patrol team, and plays it cool, saying they are from the same hometown, but you can tell he is already planning his revenge. Zhang Jin is absolutely fuming, promising to make Xiao Hao pay tenfold for humiliating his big brother. Xiao Hao just plays dumb, completely unfazed by the thinly veiled threat from his new rival. And the examiner asks if he knows the guy, helpfully pointing out he is a rich kid from the defense team. He plays it cool, but the defense team part makes it all click right into place for him, concluding the entire defense force is rotten while the examiner starts reading out the results. And surprise, surprise, first place goes to Yan Hao with that record-breaking score of 198 points, which immediately catches the eye of a senior researcher who is now very interested in studying him. Elsewhere, Zhang Jin is stewing in his dorm room, absolutely livid that he did not get first place, whining about 2 random monsters showing up out of nowhere to steal his thunder, and it turns out he only qualified because his brother is a dog for the powerful Green Vine Group. Zhang Jin is still fuming, swearing he will get into blazing blood just to avenge his brother, and the next phase of the assessment kicks off at the high-tech Beast Core testing station, where the examiner gets right to business, holding up a special wrist guard for the recruits, explaining the test is simple, just put on the device and place a beast core on top. But the stakes are high, as anyone with an affinity below 40% will be instantly disqualified. He then gives a quick rundown on how cores are ranked by quality, from common black to legendary gold, which when socketed into an armament, let warriors awaken elemental or raw power abilities. And each person's innate talent determines whether they will be a fighter or a support unit. Of course, he clarifies the wrist guard is just a cheap diagnostic tool, so no one's getting superpowers today, and with that little science lesson out of the way, the Beast Core affinity test officially begins. The first guy up gets a crushing 39% affinity, failing by a single point, and he immediately has a full-blown meltdown, whining about how hard the test is. Another recruit manages to pass with 56%, celebrating as the examiner calls for the next candidate, and of course, it is Zhang Jin's turn to step up to the plate. He gives a smug little huff, his eyes glowing red like he has already won, then confidently straps on the wrist guard ready to show everyone up. For a second, it looks like he is struggling to get the thing to work, but with a furious scream, he forces the device to activate through sheer willpower, scoring a solid 60% affinity rate, which is definitely impressive for a rookie, and the other recruits are completely blown away, realizing he just beat last year's record. Zhang Jin is seething in the corner, convinced he is the strongest rookie here and everyone else is trash. As the other recruits buzz about his score, a new face in the crowd is about to shake things up. A girl named Jin Ying gets right in Xiao Hao's face, wondering how a powerhouse from her city stayed hidden. Turns out she is the Intelligence Bureau's top analyst, and she is impressed he managed to stay off her radar. She then casually accuses him of causing the recent red mist disaster, but he just plays dumb. Jin Ying does not buy it for a second, telling him she is now very interested in all his secrets. Seeing an opportunity, Xiao Hao decides to turn the tables and ask for some intel of his own. She playfully agrees to his request, but of course there is a catch to her little offer. Jin Ying lays down the challenge she will talk, but only if he can beat her score on the affinity test. With the deal on the table, she steps up to take her turn, confident he will not be able to top her. Jin Ying cheerfully skips up to the testing platform, ready to put on a show for everyone, telling the crowd to watch closely as she promises to shatter Zhang Jin's precious new record. While Xiao Hao wonders if she can back up the talk, Zhang Jin just scoffs at the pathetic clown. She calmly straps on the wrist guard, looking completely unfazed by the pressure, then places the beast core on the device, her hand already crackling with latent energy. And with a fierce look, she unleashes her full power right into the testing equipment. The machine lights up with a staggering 78% affinity, instantly ranking her as a D-class warrior, and she gives a smug little thumbs up as the crowd recognizes her as the famous Xing Li girl. Walking right past a stunned Zhang Jin, she gloats to Xiao Hao that she kept her promise, leaving him absolutely fuming as the examiner calls for the final candidate, Yan Hao. Jin Ying smugly asks if he is feeling the pressure, but Xiao Hao knows she is the real deal, so he just tells her to watch, dead set on winning this bet for any clue about his sister. Stepping up, he remembers Song Rui, figured he was at least a C-rank warrior, so this should be easy. He straps on the wrist guard, wondering what his affinity will be with a standard black core, and with a confident smirk, he activates the device, ready to see his true potential unleashed. The machine immediately flashes C-rank, shocking the other recruits who know that is squad leader level, but then the entire system wigs out, flashing error as it struggles to calculate his score. After a tense moment, the final result comes in, and it is a big, fat 0%. Zhang Jin absolutely loses it, laughing his head off and calling Xiao Hao a pathetic loser, mocking him for being so worthless that even the beast core itself is rejecting him. While Zhang Jin is having a meltdown, Xiao Hao realizes something is very wrong with the testing device. As the wrist guard suddenly flares with red energy, the beast core cracking under some unseen pressure, and it turns out his body is just absorbing the core against his will, which is a new one. Jin Ying is completely baffled by the 0%, pointing out it is a new record for failure. But instead of mocking him, she is absolutely thrilled, immediately recording the data for her mysterious boss. From the sidelines, a creepy-looking researcher smirks, clearly noticing something is up with the core. Right as the head examiner is told that Yan Hao has apparently stolen the testing equipment, he immediately marches over, demanding Xiao Hao raise his hand and show him the missing core. And a quick look confirms the beast core has completely vanished from the wrist guard, which is a problem. With everyone staring, Xiao Hao just plays dumb, insisting he has no idea what just happened. Realizing he is about to become a lab rat, Xiao Hao knows he needs a cover story and fast. He decides to gamble, planning to pass off his transformation as a rare ability from the core itself, and his arm erupts into a monstrous red claw, putting the entire room on high alert. Zhang Jin can only stare in disbelief, completely baffled by the sudden and horrifying change, while the head examiner draws his weapon and screams for all personnel to fall back immediately. Jin Ying, on the other hand, is absolutely thrilled, thinking she is witnessing a rare beastification event. The examiner takes aim, wondering if he is infected and needs to be put down for everyone's safety, ultimately deciding the only choice is to eliminate the potential threat right here and now. But Jin Ying tries to de-escalate the situation, calling out to see if he is still in control, and Xiao Hao just turns to her, completely calm, asking what the problem is. The examiner lowers his weapon, completely baffled that Xiao Hao has not lost his mind, and our boy quickly sells his cover story, claiming the core just burrowed in and gave him this new trick. Jin Ying is absolutely thrilled, realizing he can control the transformation without going berserk. And with the immediate threat gone, the examiner declares Xiao Hao just hit the jackpot with a rare ability. But Xiao Hao is immediately suspicious, asking Jin Ying how she knows so much about his beastification, and she just gives him a smug little wink, playing it off like she is a natural know-it-all, until the examiner completely blows her cover, revealing she is a top researcher whose dad runs the whole R&D department. With her mysterious aura shattered, he declares the show is over and gets back to business, demanding Xiao Hao hand over the beast core, which is where the real problem starts. Our boy explains he'd love to, but the testing device has apparently fused itself to his arm and will not let go. While the examiner processes this, a mysterious figure in the crowd takes a special interest, realizing he has found the perfect test subject and needs to report back to the Green Vine group. Next thing you know, Xiao Hao is being escorted straight to the radiology room for a closer look, where he gets a full body scan to figure out what exactly is going on with his arm. The researchers are completely baffled, confirming the beast core has fused with his body and cannot be removed, so they turn to director Jin, who just so happens to be Jin Ying's dad, for his take, and the good doctor is practically drooling, calling Xiao Hao a fascinating specimen full of secrets. At that moment, a top military official arrives, demanding to know what all the commotion is about, but director Jin just smirks, sarcastically asking if they will still kick out a guy with zero affinity, until the chief of staff, Song Lianshin, tells him to cut the drama and just give him the report. Director Jin reveals he co-developed the machine, so he knows for a fact that 0% was a complete lie. And his daughter Jin Ying is practically vibrating with excitement, demanding he just spill the beans already. Turns out the machine did not just fail, it went completely off the charts trying to read him, leaving the chief of staff stunned, realizing his affinity actually broke the 100% theoretical maximum. With that little bombshell dropped, he orders the head examiner to follow him for a very private chat. While Xiao Hao realizes the crystal in his chest is turning red after absorbing that beast core, he figures out that while the weak core gave him no new powers, it did strengthen his internal battery, meaning the stronger the aberrant he eats, the stronger he gets, putting infinite evolution on the table. The scene then cuts to the massive skyscraper that serves as the Crimson Blood headquarters, where Song Rui is already arguing with the chief, defending her choice to bring Xiao Hao onto her squad. The chief of staff shuts Song Rui down, questioning why she is so obsessed with some random C-rank recruit, but she fires back that she promised to bring him onto her team, reminding her father she cannot break her word. He just lectures her about a soldier's duty, then drops the bomb that Xiao Hao is already on another squad, and even accuses her of trying to poach another leader's soldier before ordering her to stand down. Song Rui has no choice but to agree, though she is already plotting her next move to get him back. Meanwhile, at the barracks, Xiao Hao's new alias Yan Hao is being screamed across the lounge, and it is Jin Ying who excitedly announces their first mission is exploring a new aberrant nest together. Our boy is completely blindsided, officially listed as a C-rank member of some other guy's squad. And their new instructor explains the mission is just a simple recon job, but warns them to stay sharp. Jin Ying then gives him a smug look, promising to handle all the data collection since she's got his back. The new squad rolls out in a convoy heading straight for their first aberrant nest mission. Their instructor explains they are hitting a low-tier hive, which sounds like a total cakewalk, but Jin Ying clarifies it is a venomous swarm of worker and soldier bees, which sounds less fun. Xiao Hao wonders why they need 3 whole vehicles for a wasp nest, earning a dirty look from the driver. Just as the instructor spots trouble, Jin Ying mocks our boy for underestimating these iron bees. And it turns out these are not your garden variety wasps, but a swarm of giant scout-class monsters. The driver immediately swerves, screaming for everyone to brace for impact as the swarm descends. And a massive volley of stingers rains down, turning their recon mission into a full-blown ambush. Jin Ying panics, realizing their armored vehicle is about to get absolutely shredded by the attack, but Xiao Hao just grins, deciding this is the perfect time to test out his new powers on the swarm. The armored vehicle gets absolutely shredded by stingers until a red energy shield suddenly pops up, and Xiao Hao rips off the door, transforming it into a shield as he leaps out to fight, telling the others to stay put while he holds off the entire swarm by himself. The instructor is completely baffled, but Jin Ying explains it is the transformation ability he got from the core, admitting she thought he could only change his own body, not random objects too, which makes her absolutely giddy, realizing he can turn anything into a weapon for her to study. But just as he is holding his own, a mysterious green energy beam slices through the bees, catching Xiao Hao completely off guard as he wonders what the hell just happened. He realizes this new attack is even stronger than the bees, piercing right through his defense, so with a second unknown enemy on the field, he screams for Jin Ying to get to cover. The rest of the squad scrambles for cover behind a rock, their vehicles completely totaled, and their instructor grabs a flamethrower, ready to step out since the bees supposedly fear fire. But that mysterious green energy beam slices right through the air again, catching him off guard, and he gets absolutely vaporized in a massive explosion. A very short-lived plan indeed. Xiao Hao yells over, demanding to know what that green spike was while holding off the swarm, and Jin Ying's datapad reveals the intel was dead wrong, identifying a hound-class queen with armor-melting venom. With the massive queen bee now on the field, Xiao Hao tells the others to handle the workers. And Jin Ying actually agrees, powering up as blue energy starts swirling all around her body. Turns out she's not just a researcher as she prepares to unleash her own combat abilities, revealing her D-rank wind power as she screams storm to clear the field of smaller threats. Jin Ying's wind attack tears through the worker bees, clearing a path for the main event, and her storm of blades makes short work of the swarm, leaving only the big boss standing. With the minions gone, Xiao Hao locks eyes with the queen bee, ready for a proper fight, but the queen just screeches back, its stinger glowing as it prepares another venomous blast. Realizing shields will not cut it, Xiao Hao decides it is time to go on the offensive and casually morphs his defensive gear into a massive, jagged sword that looks absolutely brutal. He slams the new blade into the ground, channeling a surge of raw power into it, before unleashing a shockwave that clears out the last of the straggling worker bees. With the field clear, he charges the sword with red energy, preparing a massive ranged attack, then fires a concentrated energy beam straight at the queen, ready to end this right now. His energy beam scores a direct hit, tearing straight through the queen bee's vital point, but the monster is completely unfazed, which should be absolutely impossible for a hound class. Jin Ying is completely floored, realizing this aberrant is way stronger than their intel suggested, and as the queen bee tries to escape, she screams for Xiao Hao to stop it from getting away. She then realizes the horrifying truth: the queen is actually evolving into an overlord-class threat. Unfortunately for them, Xiao Hao is completely spent, collapsing after burning all his energy on that one attack. Jin Ying saunters over, sarcastically asking if he needs her to mouth feed him some power, but he just shoots back that he is not interested in little kids, which definitely gets under her skin. Annoyed, she just tosses him a ration bar, telling him to eat and rest instead of complaining. And as the squad arrives, he orders them to secure the area and report the new overlord threat. With the queen bee's nest right in front of them, Jin Ying is ready to dive straight in. And her scanner confirms the red mist concentration is low enough for them to proceed, so she brushes off Xiao Hao's concerns, arguing this is their big chance for a high-rank mission clear. Meanwhile, back at the Special Response Unit headquarters, a very different conversation is happening, where the Chief of Staff reveals the higher-ups are split on Xiao Hao: train him or turn him into a lab rat. He orders his subordinate to keep a very close eye on the kid, knowing he is a special case. But their chat is cut short by an emergency transmission that the chief orders patched through immediately. His subordinate is stunned to hear the mission's threat level has just jumped from low to high, and the chief immediately suspects foul play, knowing Jin Ying is too cautious for such a reckless move. He orders the nearest Blazing Blood unit to deploy, putting Song Rui in command of the rescue. Back at headquarters, the chief of staff is debriefing the head examiner and his brother, informing Yongxin that his younger brother will be continuing his service directly under Song Rui, and he makes it an official order, immediately reassigning the man to be her new adjutant. The brother accepts without question as the chief admits he pulled these strings for his daughter, then dismisses them, hoping this is enough to help her with her strange obsession over Yan Hao. At the nest, Xiao Hao points out that only he and Jin Ying have combat suits to resist the fog. And as they approach the entrance, she confirms the energy readings are still stable for now, but worries that if the queen evolves into an overlord, their mission will get exponentially harder. Just as she is about to step inside, Xiao Hao suddenly yells for her to stop right as a massive armored aberrant bursts from the ground, ambushing them at the cave mouth. Turns out their little ambush is a mutated, iron-armored poison queen, which is just fantastic news. And Jin Ying realizes it has already evolved into an overlord-class threat right before their eyes. She is completely baffled since the fog concentration should not be high enough for this kind of glow-up, until her scanner reveals the fog is actually way past the danger level and her gear never warned her. As she starts coughing and collapsing, Xiao Hao realizes something is seriously wrong with her suit, and she puts it together their gear was sabotaged, meaning there is a mole in Blazing Blood. Just as this horrifying truth sinks in, the ground beneath them starts to crack and give way, so Xiao Hao grabs her and makes a run for it as the entire area collapses into a massive pit. He realizes this fog-filled chasm is a perfect all-you-can-eat buffet for his powers, but decides he has to get Jin Ying to safety before he can focus on the fight ahead. Xiao Hao finds a cozy little nook for Jin Ying, telling her to hide while he handles the pest control, then instructs her to call for backup with non-sabotaged gear while he goes to play hero. Jin Ying agrees, promising to send HQ all the juicy data from their very botched mission, but just as he is about to leave, she calls out to him, clearly not done with the dramatics, and gives him the classic "if you die, I will kill you" speech, which is just adorable. He just smirks back, promising he will return, completely unfazed by her heartfelt death threat. With that settled, he turns to face the Overlord-class queen and her army of angry wasps, realizing this is his chance to fulfill the same promise he once made to his sister, Xiao Zhu. And with his power flaring, he declares he is not going to fail anyone this time around. Our boy then launches himself straight into the swarm, ready for an absolutely brutal brawl. Xiao Hao channels his remaining power into a single, massive energy cannon for a last-ditch attack, knowing he has only got one shot left and absolutely cannot afford to miss this, then unleashes the full force of his Crimson Burst right at the approaching swarm, and the concentrated beam of pure energy tears straight through the chasm, scoring a direct hit on the queen as it curls up to brace for the impact. And as the dust settles, he waits to see if his all-or-nothing gamble actually worked. But instead of victory, he is greeted by a fresh wave of red mist seeping from the ground. As the swarm emerges from the fog completely unharmed, their eyes glowing with menace, leaving him to stare in disbelief, realizing his ultimate attack did absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, Jinying confirms her worst fears: her analyzer was absolutely tampered with. Hiding in her little rock nook, Jinying finally gets her analyzer working again, only for it to immediately scream that the red mist is at a critical, unsurvivable level. She realizes the numbers are double the alert threshold just as a massive explosion rocks the cave and she peeks out, wondering what fresh hell has just been unleashed outside. Unfortunately, the blast just stirred up the fog, making the already lethal air even thicker, which is now evolving the swarm at light speed, turning even the weakest scouts into Hound-class threats. Out in the chasm, Xiao Hao is already fighting off one of the newly armored and much angrier bees. Realizing he is completely surrounded by monsters that just keep getting stronger the more he fights, he's getting worn down fast since his energy consumption is way higher than his absorption rate, and as he blocks another venomous stinger, he knows he is about to be completely drained. Jin Ying peeks from her hiding spot, seriously doubting if our boy can hold out much longer, but then she spots the red mist corrosion creeping up his neck, confirming his suit was sabotaged too. Her analyzer is screaming bloody murder, with the corruption levels spiking completely off the charts, and she realizes he is about to lose control from the overwhelming toxic fog. Knowing she has to act fast, she starts gathering wind energy to blow the mist away from him, unleashing a concentrated wind bullet right into the middle of the chasm. Her attack creates a swirling vortex around him, carving out a temporary pocket of clean air. And with the opening made, she yells at him to brace himself for what is coming next before slamming the detonator on her device to trigger her little surprise package. The wind bullet explodes into a massive vortex, clearing the fog while he just stands there totally baffled. Xiao Hao is just as surprised by the sudden clear air, but quickly realizes his free energy supply just got completely cut off, which is terrible timing, because the evolved bees are still very much a threat. And they immediately launch a volley of venomous stingers right at him. He throws up his arms to block the attack, taking the full force of the barrage, but realizes too late the stingers are laced with a nasty paralyzing agent. With another wave of projectiles already closing in fast, he knows there is absolutely no way he can dodge this next one until a new warrior with glowing fists suddenly drops in from above and proceeds to punch one of the armored bees into a million pieces. Xiao Hao recognizes his savior as Vice Commander Lin, who just dropped in unannounced, and the guy tells him to stay sharp because their little pest problem is far from over, which is a massive understatement considering they are completely surrounded by the evolved swarm. But just as the bees close in, a massive blast of purple lightning rips through their ranks, and it turns out the cavalry is none other than Song Rui, rocking a C-class railgun. Our boy is completely stunned to see his captain show up in the middle of this disaster, but she just confirms HQ sent her and the whole squad to provide some much-needed backup. With no time to waste, she immediately orders all units to charge in and exterminate the vermin, and the rest of the Blazing Blood squad storms the chasm, guns at the ready. They immediately get to work, with one team torching the bees with flamethrowers while another lays down cover fire. Song Rui orders her lieutenants to fall back while the flamethrower team holds the line, but the massive queen bee is not about to let them escape, letting out a furious screech and fires a lightning-fast stinger that tears through the air, aimed right at her retreating soldiers. Realizing they are up against an Overlord-class threat, she tells her men to keep running, then unleashes a massive electromagnetic annihilation blast from her railgun to intercept it. Her attack creates a high-voltage field designed to stop the deadly projectile in its tracks, which it does, completely shattering the stinger in a huge explosion of raw energy. The lightning does not stop there, striking the queen bee dead-on as it emerges from the smoke, and with the monster paralyzed, she orders her squad to clear the swarm and prioritize the rescue. Turns out Song Rui was holding back before, and this is the first time they have seen her go all out with her proper gear. With the immediate threat handled, Song Rui's squad starts looking for their missing teammate Lucy, who promptly gives her captain an earful for the late rescue, calling her Alice for good measure. And with the wounded secured, Song Rui gives the final order to exterminate the swarm for good. Meanwhile, Xiao Hao slips away to secretly recharge, knowing his last blast was not enough to kill the queen, and as the red mist flows into him, he feels his power returning to its peak. Right as a massive explosion from the queen's direction shatters the momentary calm, catching the entire Blazing Blood squad completely off guard as they turn to the source. Turns out the paralyzed queen bee is absorbing every last drop of red mist in the chasm and is now evolving again, pushing past the Overlord class into something far more terrifying. Jin Ying's analyzer screams as the mist spikes to a critical level, confirming this nest was a high-tier trap all along. The newly evolved queen bee lets out a deafening roar, ready to tear the entire squad apart, and to make matters worse, a fresh swarm of Hound-class bees is already flanking them from behind. A squad member named Caleb bravely volunteers to take on the queen solo while the others handle the minions, so Song Rui immediately orders everyone to cover him and focus their fire on the smaller threats, but the queen just casually deflects their energy blasts, knowing they have to end this now or die. Its armored claws effortlessly parry every single shot, making their combined assault look completely pathetic, so Caleb realizes his own claws will not be enough, leaping into the air to prepare a much stronger attack, and unleashes a scarlet condensing blast straight at the monster's face. The energy beam hits dead-on, triggering a massive explosion that rocks the entire chasm, and after landing, he looks back at the smoke, wondering if that all-or-nothing gamble actually worked. From the smoke of Caleb's attack, one of the queen's massive stingers gets blasted free, and Zio Hao realizes he needs a proper weapon since pure energy just is not cutting it. In a moment of pure luck, the dislodged stinger lands right at his feet, a gift from the enemy itself. He immediately uses his beastification to bind with it, transforming the stinger into a massive, jagged sword. As the queen unleashes a fresh volley of projectiles, he effortlessly weaves through the deadly storm, deciding to channel every last drop of his remaining red mist energy into his new blade. Facing the roaring monster, he promises to return the favor for the convenient weapon delivery, and with his eyes glowing red, he unleashes his ultimate attack, the red mist slash. The energy-infused blade slices clean through the queen's torso in a single, devastating strike, and the monster explodes into pieces, its remains raining down as Zio Hao stands victorious. Amidst the monster's remains, its Dominator-class beast core shoots into the air, and Zio Hao immediately recognizes the ridiculously high-tier loot for what it is. But Caleb is just a bit faster, lunging to snatch the prize for himself, and he immediately tries to absorb it, getting a nasty shock from the overwhelming energy. Turns out that was a terrible idea, as the raw power is way too much for him to handle. And while he is busy overloading, Song Rui's lightning attack mops up the last of the worker bees. With the swarm cleared, she orders her team to reinforce Caleb, wondering why the bees suddenly weakened, only to turn and see him drop his sword and collapse to the ground completely unresponsive. She screams his name, realizing his little power grab has gone horribly wrong, as the medic confirms his entire nervous system is collapsing from the energy overload. The medic realizes Caleb's red mist exposure is critical, warning that he is about to lose his mind, so Song Rui immediately orders her lieutenant to deploy a mobile medpod to block his neural signals, and back at their temporary camp, the squad scrambles to get the emergency equipment ready. They manage to get Caleb inside the pod, and while he is stable for now, Lucy is ordered to monitor his vitals. The high-tech pod seals shut, immediately activating and pumping him full of anesthesia to keep him sedated. Song Rui knows this is just a band-aid, telling her team they need to get him back to HQ immediately. Meanwhile, in his mind, a dark version of himself tempts him to surrender and embrace the beastification. As he feels himself dying, he flashes back to his family, apologizing for failing them in his final moments. His memories flickering to a moment of comfort with a loved one as the corruption takes over his body. Convinced it is all over, his consciousness finally gives out and he collapses into darkness. Inside his mind, Caleb's beast form tempts him while his parents' memories beg him to survive, and he flashes back to a promise he made to a girl named Sandra to come back safely. As his dark self chokes him out, he remembers his squad and Sandra are still waiting for him. And with his friends' voices in his head, he finally starts to fight back against the corruption. He screams that he is going to survive and protect everyone he cares about, no matter what, refusing to give in as he realizes this is not just about duty anymore, it is personal. He then turns the tables, telling his beast form that this responsibility is theirs to share, and by accepting the darkness, he achieves a breakthrough, forming a new red core in his chest. Meanwhile, the convoy transporting his medpod gets caught in a sudden howling sandstorm, and the driver panics, screaming that the visibility is zero and they are driving completely blind. With the sandstorm raging, the driver spots some old city ruins and suggests taking shelter, but Song Rui's first priority is Caleb, demanding an immediate status report from Lucy, who confirms his vitals are stable, though he is still completely unconscious in the medpod. Seeing no other choice, she orders the convoy to head for the ruins to wait out the storm, and the vehicles push through the howling winds, finally reaching the dilapidated structures. After pulling into a massive building, the entire squad disembarks to regroup and secure the area, but Song Rui immediately senses something is wrong, ordering a full scan of their surroundings. Her main concern is Caleb's pod, telling her soldiers to protect him at all costs. Which is terrible timing, because a pair of cloaked assassins are already watching from above and a volley of deadly bolts suddenly rains down, catching the squad in a perfect ambush. A soldier immediately hardens his body, yelling for everyone to take cover from the sudden attack, as Lucy realizes the incoming arrows are coated with deadly venom wasp fluid, but the arrows are just a distraction, because a massive boulder is now hurtling towards them. So Song Rui intercepts it midair, unleashing a massive blast of purple lightning, shattering the rock into 1,000 pieces before it can crush her squad. And that same soldier shields Lucy from the falling debris with his hardened body, while the cloaked assassins above prepare their next move, refusing to let them escape. They unleash a volley of glass bottles which come raining down on the squad below, and the bottles smash on the ground, releasing a thick cloud of mysterious green gas, which Song Rui instantly identifies as a paralyzing Dominator-class beast fluid, a very bad sign. With the gas deployed, the cloaked assassins charge in, screaming for their crew to kill everyone, and a big one-eyed brute with an axe lunges straight for Song Rui, demanding she hand over their prize. Song Rui, completely unimpressed, just tells him to back off and zaps him with a face full of lightning, which sends the guy flying, but it turns out he was just a very loud distraction. Because another assassin uses the opening to hook Caleb's medpod with a massive chain. She tries to react, but realizes too late that the paralyzing gas has already taken full effect, so the assassins start hauling the pod away, convinced there is treasure inside since it is so heavily guarded. Seeing them drag Caleb away, Lucy screams for them to stop and makes a desperate run for the pod, a brilliant plan, right up until an arrow from the rafters slams straight into her leg. She collapses, calling out Caleb's name as the assassins make off with their unconscious teammate. Inside the stolen medpod, Caleb is convulsing as the red core's energy goes completely haywire, while Song Rui patches up Jin Ying, who is deliriously muttering about needing to save Yan Hao, and she snaps the arrow shaft, blaming herself for letting her squad get ambushed so easily. With Jin Ying stable, Song Rui realizes the raiders knew their exact movements, confirming a mole in their ranks. Her subordinate reports most of the raiders escaped, but she knows they could not have gone far in the storm right as another soldier finds an abandoned elevator shaft, the perfect entrance to an underground hideout. Song Rui immediately rallies the troops, ordering a full-scale assault to rescue Yan Hao from the assassins. B-Team gears up to rappel down with her, leaving A-Team behind to guard the wounded and secure the exit. But one of the non-combatants begs to join the rescue, a request Song Rui immediately shuts down, and he argues that Yan Hao is his best friend who saved him, so he cannot just sit back and do nothing. Song Rui reluctantly agrees to let the non-combatant tag along, warning him to stay glued to her side. Meanwhile, the assassins are trying to crack open the medpod, convinced there is treasure inside the iron coffin. One of the bigger brutes decides brute force is the answer, winding up for a massive axe swing, and his high-tech weapon just bounces right off the pod with a pathetic little spark. The raider leader is absolutely fuming, complaining the pod is tougher than a bank vault. But one of the younger members claims he knows how to open it, but they have to go below. The leader immediately shoots that down, reminding him the last 3 guys who went down there never came back. Despite the mockery, the kid insists there is a key in the lower levels and proposes a bet. He then makes a deal with the furious leader: if he opens the pod, he walks free, but if he fails, he dies. Inside, Xiao Hao wakes up, realizing he is in an enemy hideout after completely losing control of his powers. Inside the pod, Xiao Hao's upgraded core cranks his senses to 11, letting him map out the entire hideout. And he gets a full system diagnostic, confirming he stole the queen bee's poison gland ability. His captors drag the pod down to a massive skeletal structure, with the leader warning the kid not to pull anything, but the young assassin just points, declaring this giant bone pile is the key to opening their prize. Before they can even try, the pod suddenly explodes outwards, sending the entire crew flying, leaving them completely stunned as the iron coffin opens itself with a massive cloud of smoke. A hand emerges from the mist, crackling with green energy as Xiao Hao tests out his new toy, and one of the brutes immediately starts screaming, realizing he's been hit with a nasty toxin. While our boy calmly notes his new crowd control ability is working just fine on the paralyzed thugs, the leader is absolutely floored, finally realizing their treasure was a person this whole time. The leader finally puts it together that they were played, screaming about being infiltrated on purpose. He then tries to save face by boasting he is a D-rank warrior, promising to crush our boy like an ant. With that little ego trip out of the way, he charges in for the kill, screaming about dirty tricks. Xiao Hao is completely unimpressed by the D-rank threat, casually activating his new poison ability, and effortlessly blocks the attack before delivering a toxic counterpunch straight to the guy's face. The so-called D-rank warrior gets sent flying, his big talk ending in a very pathetic defeat. Just as he is wrapping up, a sudden scream makes him turn to see what is going on, and he finds the younger assassin absolutely terrified, so he asks if he wants a turn too. Turns out the kid is so scared he just passes out cold on the spot, which is one way to surrender. With the welcoming committee handled, Xiao Hao finally takes in the massive aberration graveyard they call a base. Xiao Hao realizes this graveyard is actually a fighting pit where aberrations were forced to kill each other, and thanks to his new senses, he can already pick up Song Rui's signal from 10 floors up, smirking at her impatience just as his new core starts crackling with unstable energy. Meanwhile, her squad is mopping up the last of the assassins with brutal efficiency, as one soldier just casually tanks a full clip, much to the shooter's absolute dismay. Vice Commander Lin finishes off another straggler with a kick, clearing the room in seconds flat, and with the area finally secure, Song Rui orders her team to find Yan Hao immediately. Her subordinate spots some massive claw marks, pointing towards a hidden passage nearby, and the tracker confirms he is right below them, right before the signal completely vanishes, leaving Song Rui to assume the worst, panicking that her new recruit is already dead. Just as they are about to descend, Xiao Hao casually strolls up carrying the unconscious assassin. He assures the stunned squad he is fine, prompting them to ask what is going on down below. Our boy explains it is an old beast fighting arena and the vice commander immediately wants to investigate, but Song Rui shuts that down, ordering a full retreat while eyeing Xiao Hao with suspicion. With the conversation over, Xiao Hao just drops the unconscious kid on the ground who was faking it the whole time, leaping up with a sword to stab him in the back. The blade strikes him dead on, a perfect sneak attack that should have been fatal, but it just shatters against his chest thanks to his new partial beastification scale armor. With his eyes glowing red, he asks the kid if he is really that eager to die, breaking the sword. He then grabs the assassin by the throat, who can only scream that all soldiers are bastards. Instead of finishing him off, Xiao Hao realizes the kid is showing signs of a nasty crimson fog infection, and as the young assassin collapses, an ID card falls out of his pocket, catching the squad's attention. A soldier picks it up, identifying him as a member of the Kishi Patrol Team's 7th Squad, and Song Rui notes the man in the photo looks a lot like the kid, probably his older brother. Seeing his condition is critical, she orders her men to take him back for immediate treatment and questioning, but Xiao Hao decides he can save the kid himself by absorbing the corrupting energy from his body. Back at the Blazing Blood Barracks, the squad finally returns from their disastrous mission, and the gate guards immediately scramble to report their arrival to a mysterious young Master Zhang. The new authority figure orders Jin Ying to be taken to the medical bay for her injuries, then stops Xiao Hao, declaring all personnel from the mission must now undergo a mandatory quarantine inspection. Xiao Hao's squad gets stopped by guards demanding everyone strip for a full disinfection under new orders, and Song Rui is having absolutely none of it, stepping up to ask who exactly gave this ridiculous command. She pulls rank as their commanding officer, telling the grunts to get their superior down here immediately. The new guy in charge strolls up, acting like it is all a big misunderstanding now that she has arrived. She immediately calls him out for using logistics soldiers for this while he wonders why she is with Xiao Hao. He tries to play it cool, claiming only the new guy needs to be checked for the good of the barracks. But Song Rui just flares her power, reminding him he is definitely not the one giving orders around here. She tells her team to ignore the guy and walk away, but he is not done with his little power trip just yet. He then points at the unconscious assassin, calling him a filthy thing not allowed inside the base, before declaring that trash from the patrol team belongs in the trash heap and ordering his men to seize him. Zhang's goons try to act tough, asking if Xiao Hao is really going to disobey a direct order. And Song Rui is about to step in to shut this whole circus down, calling out Zhang by name, but Xiao Hao stops her, calmly saying he will handle this little power trip himself. He then walks right up and puts a hand on Zhang's shoulder, telling him to stop this nonsense, and the guy immediately freaks out, realizing he has just been hit with a nasty dose of poison. Xiao Hao just smirks, telling him his methods are pathetic and to back off while he still can. A few seconds later, the so-called authority figure is on his knees, completely taken down by the toxin. Our boy then tells the two stunned guards to take their boss away before he gets more hurt, and as they drag him off, Zhang screams that Xiao Hao won this round but he will get his revenge. Song Rui asks what he just did, and he casually explains the guy will just be bedridden for a few days. Back in the lab, Jin Ying confirms her suit was sabotaged with a corrosive agent, meaning a mole wanted her dead, and while the chief of staff notes Xiao Hao was also a target, our boy corrects him he was the main *1. With the threat confirmed, the chief suspends them both from all field missions until they find the traitor. Jin Ying's father then warns the chief to assign trustworthy guards because they cannot afford another screw-up. And the chief grimly agrees, knowing full well what is at stake if they fail to protect them. He then orders Song Rui to personally ensure their safety, revealing he is actually her father. A few days later, Xiao Hao is stuck on base, completely bored out of his mind from the suspension, just mulling over the mole situation and wondering what his next move should be, when one of his squad mates suddenly runs up, yelling his name like the world is ending, and whispers that he found a photo on the assassin kid and the girl in it looks just like his sister. Xiao Hao completely loses his mind over the photo, grabbing his squad mate and demanding to know if this is real, then drags the poor guy straight to the med bay where the young assassin is being held. Inside, a doctor reports the kid's condition is stable, but he will need to stay under observation. And he is completely baffled, since the boy's fatal infection has somehow just vanished over the last few days. Xiao Hao immediately takes over, telling the confused doctor this is now an internal blazing blood investigation. He then admits he is the reason for the miracle recovery, having absorbed the crimson fog himself while staring at the photo of Xiao Zhu. Just then, the assassin wakes up and lunges for the picture, screaming that it belongs to his brother. But our boy just holds it out of reach, demanding to know where he saw the girl in the photo. The terrified kid admits he saw her about 6 months ago back at a refugee resettlement center. But when Xiao Hao asks where she is now, the kid just panics, screaming that he does not know. The kid starts screaming in his sleep about his brother who promised he'd come right back for him, which hits a little too close to home for Xiao Hao, flashing back to the exact same promise he made his sister. And he is clearly feeling the weight of that memory as he watches the kid thrash around in the med bed. His squadmate explains the brother was on a refugee mission before getting reassigned and vanishing, which sounds super shady, and just then the assassin has another violent fit, grabbing the poor guy's arm in a panic. So Xiao Hao steps in, secretly absorbing the last of the infection while telling his buddy to keep it quiet. With the kid finally calm, Xiao Hao offers a deal: he will find his brother if the kid spills everything about Xiao Zhu. He holds up the photo, telling the assassin he can at least try to trust him on this one, and the boy, feeling the sudden lack of lethal infection, asks what he did, but Xiao Hao just says it is mutually beneficial. Seeing no other choice, the assassin finally agrees to talk, starting his story from 6 months ago. Over a meal in the base cafeteria, Xiao Hao's squadmate seems a little worried about his plans, asking if he is really leaving, but our boy confirms he cannot wait any longer to find Xiao Zhu. His buddy then brings up Captain Song, clearly wondering how she fits into this little escape plot, and Xiao Hao reveals she already knows, having assigned the guy to be his personal shadow for protection. Just as he declares no one will stop him, Jin Ying's voice cuts in to challenge that very statement. She is already fully healed, bragging about the base's top-tier medical tech as she and Lucy join them. And since the cafeteria is a terrible place for secrets, they all relocate to a private meeting room. Once inside, he asks how they knew, and Jin Ying just smugly holds up her tablet with a grin which is playing surveillance footage, making his friend realize she's been spying on them this whole time. She just calls it protection, winking that with a mole on the loose, anyone could get kidnapped. Turns out Song Rui was behind the spying, having already gotten the full story from the doctor, and she tells Zio how she will not stop his little side quest, just asking for his trust in return. He is clearly taken aback by his captain's sudden support, not sure how to react, and Jin Ying immediately jumps in, reminding him she has her own special methods for this mission. Even his newly assigned shadow chimes in, promising to back him up no matter what happens. So with everyone on board, Song Rui tells him to lay out the full plan for the whole squad. Zio Hao agrees, ready to finally get this rescue operation officially underway. Meanwhile, on the ruined outskirts of Kishi City, a new player enters the game, as a red-haired man uses a password to enter a hidden underground base, and immediately reports to his boss that Zio Hao is on his way to their city. Meanwhile, that red-haired operative calls his boss, Chief Hong, with fresh intel on Yan Hao's location, and it turns out the boss is this guy who is absolutely thrilled our boy is walking into his trap. Their welcome party is a full-blown checkpoint lockdown, with city guards inspecting every single vehicle, and our heroes are stuck in the traffic jam, rolling up in Zio Hao's very discreet personal sports car. Song Rui gives him a little grief for his taste in cars, but he insists it is for the mission's sake, while his shadow asks if leaving Jin Ying was a good idea, though Song Rui confirms she has a babysitter. Zio Hao adds that she is their eyes and ears back at HQ, providing remote support for the operation. Right on cue, a guard walks up to their window demanding a security check, but the inspection gets cut short when a lookout spots incoming aberrations just a click away. And it is not just a few strays, it is an entire pack of Iron Ridge wolves charging the checkpoint. The checkpoint guards immediately panic, screaming for everyone to fall back as they run for their lives, leaving Song Rui absolutely livid that the so-called protectors just abandoned everyone to die. But Zio Hao just smirks, telling her to let him go handle this little pest problem himself, as the wolves immediately swarm the checkpoint, leaping over cars and tearing into the civilians. One poor guy is about to become lunch as a wolf lunges straight for his throat, until Zio Hao intercepts the attack with a partially transformed arm, saving the man's life. He tells the terrified civilian to run while he deals with the rest of the pack, which is a whole lot of Scout-class Iron Ridge wolves looking for a fight. And as they surround him, Zio Hao realizes this whole scene feels eerily familiar. It triggers a flashback to the day his sister was taken, a memory he is clearly not over. Fueled by that traumatic memory, he vows to never let it happen again, unleashing his full power, which leaves the local guards completely stunned that he just wiped out the entire swarm in seconds, and one of them immediately orders his man to report that their high-value target has officially arrived. With the mess handled, Song Rui immediately lays into the city guards who abandon their posts, pulling rank and introducing herself as the captain of the Blazing Blood Squad to the terrified grunts. Flashing her id, she orders them to drop the bogus security check and let the civilians through, and once they are driving again, she notes the whole checkpoint felt like more than a random inspection. Zio Hao agrees, confirming it felt like they were looking for someone specific, probably him. Putting that aside, they arrive at the City Defense HQ to investigate the Assassin's Brothers files. Inside the archives, his shadow confirms they have access to every single one of the patrol team's missions. Zio Hao is getting absolutely nowhere with the physical archives since the brothers' file is completely missing. At the same time, Song Rui hits a digital dead end, realizing something is very, very wrong. Turns out it is a total wipe. His shadow confirms even the basic personnel roster has been scrubbed clean. Song Rui confirms the local database is also empty, meaning someone intentionally erased the guy's entire existence. Just as they are about to call it a loss, she gets an idea and pulls out her phone for backup. She calls Jin Ying for some remote hacking support, who agrees but warns them it'll take a while. With their tech expert on the case, his shadow is just amazed that Jin Ying can pull off that kind of deep dive. That is when the shadow remembers a veteran, Captain Jia, who mentored the missing brother from day one. So they rush over to Jia's house, only to find the place completely ransacked from a very recent fight. Zio Hao finds a clue on the floor, immediately guessing the corrupt city defense team got to him first. As the squad wonders why the city defense team would target Jia, his shadow connects the dots, realizing it is revenge for Zio Hao beating up their captain, confirming the checkpoint was a trap. Just as our boy suggests a direct confrontation, they are interrupted by an officer who has been looking for them. The guy introduces himself as Adjutant Li Ben from the city defense team, acting awfully friendly, and then claims Captain Jia went missing on a mission, formally requesting their help with the search. Song Rui is immediately suspicious, but he claims a recent aberration surge has left them completely overwhelmed. Zio Hao quietly gets her attention, confirming her suspicion that this whole story is a load of crap, so she agrees to help with the search, but only if the adjutant himself comes along for the ride. Li Ben immediately panics, trying to weasel his way out by claiming he'd just get in their way. But Song Rui shuts that down hard, reminding him it was an order, not a request he could refuse. With their unwilling guide shoved in the car, the squad drives out to the supposed search area on the city outskirts, and Zio Hao's shadow immediately calls out Li Ben's story, accusing him of deliberately sending Captain Jia to his death. The adjutant stammers that it was Jia's own request before pointing out they have arrived at the designated ruins. But after getting out, Xiao Hao immediately senses that the whole situation feels completely wrong. He points out the obvious for a place supposedly crawling with monsters. There is absolutely no trace of crimson fog, and just as he suggests they bail, Li Ben is caught sneakily texting on his phone, probably calling in the ambush. He tries to weasel out of it, claiming his job is done and his own squad is coming to pick him up. But Song Rui is having none of that, blocking his escape route with a very pointed kick while Xiao Hao grabs him. She demands he spit out his real objective, clearly done playing along with this obvious trap, and her lightning crackles to life, a not-so-subtle promise of what is coming if he does not start talking. With his back against the wall, Li Ben starts screaming as the ground cracks with energy and a massive beast bursts from below, confirming the ambush has officially arrived. Song Rui immediately puts it together this is why the area was suspiciously clear of weaker monsters. Turns out their welcome party is a massive, crystal-covered thunder beast, an overlord-class threat which lets out a deafening roar, its body crackling with an insane amount of raw power. Sending Xiao Hao's shadow into a full-blown panic, recognizing the extreme danger they are in. Xiao Hao realizes the missing patrol team and weird beast activity were all connected to this thing. Seeing his chance while everyone is distracted, Li Ben makes a desperate break for it, but Song Rui is having none of that, immediately ordering her subordinate to drag him back. The adjutant screams he is not dying here as the shadow warns the beast is charging a breath attack. Xiao Hao shoves his captain out of the way just as the Thunder Beast unleashes its attack, blasting a massive beam of pure energy that tears right through the city ruins, forcing them both to leap for cover as the ground beneath them gets completely vaporized and the resulting explosion kicks up a massive cloud of dust and debris. With the immediate danger past, Song Rui tells him to hold the line while she goes to grab her weapon, leaving our boy to play distraction against the Overlord-class monster all by himself. Meanwhile, the corrupt Chief Hong is watching from the rooftops, eager to see Xiao Hao get crushed, as his subordinate questions if their little remote control can actually handle a beast this strong. Hong boasts their mysterious backers have a whole beast-taming facility full of even worse monsters, revealing his plan is to capture Xiao Hao for them and take over Kishi City as his reward. Xiao Hao quickly sizes up the monster, realizing it is a pure energy-type fighter, and decides his newly acquired poison glands from the queen bee should do the trick. But as he tries to activate his power, the energy just completely dissipates from his arm, leaving him stunned as his beastification gets forcibly cancelled out of nowhere. He realizes the beast's electrical field is somehow neutralizing his abilities, and recognizes its next attack is a lot like Song Rui's own electromagnetic shells. The monster unleashes a massive sphere of crackling lightning straight at his face, forcing him to dive out of the way just as the attack slams into the ground, and the resulting shockwave tears up the entire battlefield with raw power. Catching his breath, he knows he cannot afford a single mistake against this thing. Xiao Hao realizes this Overlord-class beast's lightning armor is a serious problem, keeping him at a distance. So he asks Song Rui for help, who confirms her own Thunder Beast core can nullify its abilities. She warns him that one full power shot will only disable the armor for a split second, but our boy says an instant is all he needs, telling her to leave the rest to him. With the plan set, he immediately charges in while Song Rui takes aim from behind, and she unleashes her ultimate move, the electromagnetic annihilation shell, straight at the monster, which connects perfectly, completely neutralizing the beast's defensive lightning field for a precious moment. That is his cue to strike, sinking his newly envenomed claws deep into the monster's hide. He taunts the beast, asking how it likes the potent venom he stole from the queen bee, and it works perfectly, as the poison immediately starts slowing the massive creature down. With the poison taking hold, Xiao Hao effortlessly dodges the beast's clumsy attacks, taunting it for being too slow, and then unleashes a brutal flurry of slashes, tearing the massive creature apart with his transformed claws. He realizes that without its lightning, the beast is physically weak, but knows he could not have one without his captain. Just as he is about to finish it, a new shadowy figure appears, telling him he is not leaving just yet. Up on the rooftop, Chief Hong's subordinate starts panicking that their expensive pet is about to lose the fight. Meanwhile, Song Rui is impressed by Xiao Hao's growth, realizing she needs to step up her own game too, but as she is lost in thought, another shadowy monster materializes right behind her back, which is when Chief Hong reveals his brilliant plan B, asking whoever said he only brought one monster. Song Rui whips around, finally sensing the immense danger that just snuck up on her. And it turns out the backup is another massive Overlord-class beast, ready to join the party. Xiao Hao barely has time to register the second Overlord-class beast, as the new monster lunges straight for an unsuspecting Song Rui, so he screams for her to move, shoving her out of the way, which sends his captain tumbling hard to the ground, leaving him to face a volley of deadly spikes from the beast. Song Rui can only scream his name, watching in horror, while the monster closes in, ready to finish the job, opening its massive jaws to swallow him whole. But our boy just smirks from inside its mouth, asking if it really thinks it can devour him, and delivers an explosive punch that shatters its jaw completely. With his jaw shattered, Xiao Hao just scoffs at the 2-on-1 odds, completely unfazed by the ambush, as the second monster is identified as a stealthy butcher beast, another Overlord-class threat. And Song Rui rushes over, realizing they just got blindsided by a monster that can turn invisible, which she explains is a specialized aberration that is nearly impossible to fight without a sensory-type teammate. But before they can plan their next move, the first Thunder Beast unleashes a massive energy blast, leaving Song Rui completely stunned that its lightning abilities have somehow already recovered. At that exact moment, the new shadowy combatant finally makes his move, materializing behind Xiao Hao, who barely has time to register the sudden, overwhelming spike of new energy. Before the mysterious assailant lands a devastating blow that sends him flying across the battlefield, and the Butcher Beast immediately follows up, slamming him to the ground as Song Rui screams his name. Absolutely furious, Song Rui powers up a massive lightning attack to deal with the Butcher Beast and unleashes a full-power electromagnetic bomb straight into the monster's face, engulfing the creature in a massive storm of crackling blue energy. But the beast just vanishes into thin air, leaving his captain stunned by its stealth, admitting its concealment is too good to track. But Xiao Hao reveals he has a plan. Since her grenade tagged it, he can sense its location and just needs her to guide him in. So she calls out its position as the monster reappears, charging straight for our boy. But he meets the attack head-on, catching the beast's massive jaws with his bare hands, taunting it for being hungry before charging up a nasty little surprise of his own. Then shoves a ball of pure energy down its throat, impaling it from the inside out. With the Butcher Beast smoking on the ground, our boy barely has time to catch his breath, and he declares one monster down, but the real problem is still very much standing. Turning to the still sparking Thunder Beast, he knows the real fight is just getting started, so he asks Song Rui for a repeat performance, but she is completely out of juice for her big attack. As the beast unleashes another blast, she reveals she has one last desperate plan to break its armor. She will cover him with a temporary ionized layer, but it only lasts 10 seconds and blocks one hit. Xiao Hao just says that is enough, taking on her purple energy for the final push. And knowing he only gets one shot at this, he charges straight into the fray. The Thunder Beast immediately responds with a massive tail slam, sending lightning across the ground, forcing him to dodge because that one-hit shield is all he has got before he is toast. The Thunder Beast lets out one last roar before collapsing, but the fight is not over yet because the supposedly defeated Butcher Beast zips away, turning invisible for another round. Song Rui is completely baffled, admitting its stealth is too advanced for her to track on her own, but Xiao Hao reminds her it is still tagged by her grenade, so he just needs her to be his eyes. She immediately starts calling out its position as the monster charges in for another sneak attack, and our boy meets the ambush head-on, catching the beast's massive jaws with his bare hands. He taunts the creature for being hungry before charging up a nasty little surprise of his own. Then shoves a ball of pure energy down its throat, impaling it from the inside out for good this time. The Butcher Beast finally goes down, smoking on the ground after that very personal finisher. With both overlords handled, he collects their cores, deciding to split the loot with his captain. With the monsters down, Xiao Hao turns to thank his captain for the assist, only to find Song Rui has completely collapsed from the strain. As his shadow panics, their captive adjutant starts screaming that he does not want to die, but our boy confirms she just overused her abilities and is otherwise fine. Just then, Chief Hong's goons show up on a rooftop with rocket launchers, ready to fire, and Hong orders them to forget the adjutant since the guy was just disposable bait anyway. Realizing he has been abandoned, Li Ben starts spilling everything about the plot to capture Xiao Hao. Meanwhile, Hong is absolutely furious that his rockets missed, blaming the beast's lingering electrical field. With the attack over, Xiao Hao orders his shadow to get Song Rui and their new prisoner to safety, telling him to report this treason directly to the chief of staff while he handles the rest. His shadow yells for him to get in the car, but Xiao Hao just calls him an idiot for suggesting they become a sitting target. He orders his subordinate to get moving while he provides cover, just as a rocket comes screaming their way and our boy just casually kicks the missile aside, prompting his shadow to floor it while promising to return. As the car speeds off, Hong's men report that their target just intercepted the entire barrage and is now coming for them. The goons are ordered to stall him, nervously mentioning that reinforcements from Green Vine are on their way. But Xiao Hao just blurs past them in a flash of red energy, leaving a trail of bodies in his wake, and the last man standing is completely stunned that he is still this strong after fighting two Overlord-class beasts. That moment of awe is cut short when Xiao Hao grabs him by the face, ready to end this little sideshow. He slams the goon into the pavement with a single beastification-enhanced strike, taking him out instantly. And the guy immediately starts begging, blaming powerful people. But Xiao Hao just tells him he messed with the wrong person. Before he can even move, a fist slams into his face completely out of nowhere, sending him skidding across the pavement with a massive, ground-shattering shockwave. Turns out the Green Vine reinforcements have arrived, led by a B-rank warrior named Lu Feng. Xiao Hao demands to know who this new guy is, but just gets told he is not important enough for an answer. Not one to wait for an invitation, our boy immediately lunges back into the fight, but Lu Feng effortlessly dodges the attack and unleashes a brutal flurry of his own, overwhelming him with a series of rapid-fire strikes that are way too fast to counter. He manages to block one hit, only for Lu Feng to grab his arm and charge up a nasty punch, calling him pathetic before delivering a supercharged blow straight to his gut. The impact sends him crashing into the pavement, completely outmatched by this new threat. The final blow sends a massive shockwave across the battlefield, leaving Xiao Hao completely out of the fight. Lu Feng scoffs at the result, disappointed that the guy his bosses hyped up is just a common thug. At that moment, his superior shows up to chew out Chief Hong for failing to handle one guy with two overlords. The big shot then leaves Hong to handle the cleanup, who promises he will not screw it up this time. So naturally, Hong takes out his frustration by kicking our boy while he is down, calling him a pathetic dog. He then decides to rub it in someone's face, pulling out his phone to start a video call with a Jia Jun. Turns out Jia Jun is Captain Jia, who is currently getting beaten senseless in a prison cell by Hong's thugs. Hong then shoves the phone in Xiao Hao's face, forcing the captive captain to see his unconscious body. Captain Jia absolutely loses it, screaming that Hong is a lunatic for dragging Xiao Hao into their personal beef. But hearing his name, Xiao Hao realizes they have found him, just as Hong orders him taken to a taming base. Even while captured, Xiao Hao decides to absorb a spare beast core he had stashed away, finding himself in the secret underground Green Vine base right under Kishi City, where he is currently chained up inside a giant test tube like some science experiment. Turns out it was an Overlord-class stealth core, his eyes flaring with new power which grants him a 3-minute invisibility skill with a guaranteed critical first strike. So naturally, he immediately shatters the glass prison with a single empowered hand, leaving the entire containment unit in a puddle of green goo and broken shards. Now free, he realizes this hidden lab is right next to where they ambushed him. While in the control room, the lab coats are screaming that test subject 907 has escaped, catching one last glimpse of him on camera before the surveillance feed goes dead. A squad of Green Vine goons gears up to recapture their test subject, with strict orders to bring him in alive. Too bad for them, Xiao Hao is already out and rocking a brand new shadow form from that stealth core. And the guards finally breach the containment room only to find it completely empty, sending them into a panic. As their commander screams for a search party, our boy just casually strolls right past him, completely invisible. He notes the new stealth mode is great, but it has only got a 10-minute timer on it, so he immediately bolts down the corridor, knowing he has to find Captain Jia before the clock runs out. He finds the prison block guarded by two guys who could not care less about the escape alarm, revealing Jia in the cell. So naturally, he just walks right up and puts them both to sleep before they even know what is happening. The beaten-up Captain Jia looks up in shock as Xiao Hao calls his name, finally seeing his rescuer. Moments later, they are reunited, with Jia just proud that his old student did not go down so easily. Xiao Hao explains he was originally looking for Jia about another missing person, not trying to drag him into this. Turns out Jia is looking for the exact same guy, desperately asking if our boy has found any clues. He lays out the conspiracy the city defense team has been reassigning his men and they just vanish. Jia names a Zhang Shi as the one stonewalling his investigation, making Xiao Hao realize this goes way deeper. Right on cue, the cavalry arrives as an elevator opens to reveal a squad of heavily armed goons. Jia tells him to run while the guards get their orders kill the captain, but capture the test subject alive. But our boy is not running anywhere, instead launching himself straight into the enemy squad with a flying kick. He drops the entire team in seconds, knowing his plan to get captured would have been wasted otherwise. Xiao Hao asks if the captain can still move and Jia just scoffs, calling himself Old Jia the Undying. Meanwhile, the guy in charge panics, ordering his men to release all the beasts to stop them. The panicked commander tries rallying his men, screaming that if Xiao Hao gets past, they are all finished, but our boy just casually waves them off, completely unimpressed by the tough guy routine. The gates then open to reveal a whole menagerie of aberrations charging straight for them. And he realizes this is where the overlords came from, a full-blown illegal beast-rearing operation. He dives into the swarm, a blur of red claws tearing through the cannon fodder with absolute ease, while the commander yells at his superiors for bailing, claiming his distraction bought them precious time. He is pretty confident his little monster swarm will keep our boy occupied for a good long while, right before he gets absolutely decked from behind by an unseen force. Because Xiao Hao already tore through the wall, having finished the entire welcoming party in seconds. The guy can only watch as his ride leaves him behind, screaming that Zhang Shi is useless. The commander's bosses casually hit a detonator from their getaway car, wishing him a fond farewell. He realizes way too late that he was just disposable bait as the entire base starts to go up in flames. The guy tries to bluff, threatening Xiao Hao with Captain Jia's life if he takes another step closer. But our boy just pins him to the wall, demanding to know who is really pulling the strings here. That is when Captain Jia himself grabs the commander from behind, completely ruining his last-ditch hostage threat. With his plan in shambles, the guy immediately starts singing, blaming a mysterious Mr. Hong for the whole operation. Xiao Hao connects the dots, realizing they knew he was investigating the files and erased them ahead of time. Desperate to stay alive, the commander offers a new deal. He knows where the missing patrol members are. He leads them to a collapsed tunnel, explaining his bosses blew the main exit on their way out, but points to a manhole, revealing a secret path they can use to get through the rubble. The commander leads them through the secret tunnel, already plotting to ditch his rescuers for some Green Vine experts. But Xiao Hao immediately senses an oppressive energy, realizing this escape route feels more like a trap. They find themselves on a ledge overlooking a massive underground cavern, and the feeling only gets worse, because something absolutely enormous with glowing red eyes is waiting for them in the darkness below. Meanwhile, at a different secret base, Song Rui stands over a shattered containment unit, clearly unimpressed. She reports to Jin Ying that her side of the investigation only turned up a pile of dead monsters. Jin Ying admits the clues are too fragmented, and she still cannot piece together Green Vine's full plan. She then explains they lost Xiao Hao after a direct conflict with Zhang Shi over Captain Jia's case. Turns out she already reported the whole mess to her father, the chief of staff, who was absolutely furious. Just then, Xiao Hao's shadow arrives with their captive adjutant, asking Song Rui what to do with him now. Song Rui grills their captive adjutant for intel on the mastermind, since the hideout he revealed is a total bust. Jin Ying then offers a simple choice: spill everything about Green Vine or get a brand new hole in his head. The threat works wonders, sending the guy into a panic as he desperately tries to remember something useful. He finally cracks, revealing Zhang Shi often sneaks into Green Vine's secret Crimson Fog storage system. That is all Song Rui needs to hear, immediately deciding they are going to check out the storage facility themselves. Xiao Hao's shadow warns her that reinforcements are on the way and maybe they should wait for backup. But she shuts that down, stating their priority is securing someone named Lu Jai, not waiting around for help. They arrive at the storage facility only to be blocked by guards who could not care less about their blazing blood credentials. Not in the mood for a debate, Song Rui just decks the lead guard, clearing her own path forward. As the team enters, the downed guards scramble to report the intrusion to their boss, a certain Lord Lu. Inside the storage facility, they are immediately met by the boss, Lord Lu, who has clearly been expecting them. Song Rui warns her team this is likely a major enemy base, but Lord Lu just calmly confirms he sees them. Without any warning, a blade-like projectile slams into the ground right next to Jin Ying, who barely registers the attack before Lord Lu is already on her with a devastating kick, and she just manages to dodge as his attack completely shatters the concrete floor. The masked man seems impressed by her reflexes, finding the whole thing rather interesting. Song Rui steps up to confront him, demanding to know exactly who he is, but he just says no comment before launching another lightning-fast kick at Xiao Hao's shadow. Seeing the incoming danger, the shadow quickly activates his armament hardening to block the blow, and he manages to catch the kick, though the impact still sends a massive shockwave through his arms. Lord Lu sends both Jin Ying and the shadow flying with a single kick, clearing the field instantly. So Song Rui immediately charges in, her blade crackling with purple lightning for some payback. The shadow yells for her to be careful, realizing this masked fighter is at least a B-rank threat, but she swings anyway, and Lord Lu just casually sidesteps the attack like it is nothing before immediately countering with a brutal kick that sends her skidding across the floor. The impact sends her tumbling hard, leaving her completely open for a follow-up attack. He is already on her again, launching another kick before she can even get back on her feet, and the next blow sends her crashing straight into the facility's heavy machinery. Jin Ying panics, realizing her captain is a terrible close-quarters fighter without her usual firearms, as Lord Lu taunts her for being weaker than Xiao Hao, but she just fires back that he is not so tough himself. Song Rui cannot believe it, wondering how Xiao Hao could have possibly lost to this guy. And Lord Lu is just surprised she is still conscious, raising a blade to finish her off, but decides he will just punch her lights out instead, ready to see if she is tougher than her subordinate. That plan gets cut short when a fist smashes into his mask completely out of nowhere, sending the masked fighter tumbling across the floor, completely blindsided by the surprise attack. He gets slammed straight into the wall with enough force to leave a massive crater. Because the cavalry has arrived, catching Song Rui midair while Jin Ying complains about not getting her own rescue. The rescuer immediately leaps away, getting his captain clear of the immediate danger zone. He asks if she is okay, and she looks up in total shock, realizing it is Xiao Hao himself. And just like that, our boy is back in the fight, holding his captain and ready for round 2. Song Rui is still in total shock, asking if he is actually okay after that grand entrance. But Xiao Hao just smirks back, more concerned about her than himself after the beating she took. Their little reunion gets cut short by Jin Ying, who loudly reminds them they are still in a fight. Meanwhile, the masked fighter gets back on his feet, absolutely furious that his victory was just stolen. He demands to know how Xiao Hao even got here, and our boy credits an old friend for the tip-off. Just then, another goon pulls a gun on a new guy named Zhang Shi, accusing him of betrayal. The masked man, now revealed as Lu Feng, decides to personally execute the traitor for his failure, but Xiao Hao zips in at the last second, blocking the fatal blow because he needs the guy alive. Song Rui confirms their new pet traitor knows way too many secrets to just let him die here. Lu Feng absolutely loses his mind that a sewer rat he already beat once is getting in his way. Lu Feng unleashes a flurry of sonic punches, which our boy just casually bats aside like they are nothing. And when he follows up with a kick, Xiao Hao just sidesteps, calling him way too slow for this fight. The missed attack slams into the ground with enough force to tear up the concrete floor, a nice little tantrum. Absolutely furious, Lu Feng powers up, screaming that Xiao Hao is officially a dead man for embarrassing him. He launches a massive sonic wind blade, a giant spinning disc of energy straight at our boy's face, which Xiao Hao just smirks at before slicing the entire attack in half without even breaking a sweat. From the sidelines, his shadow cannot believe it, realizing Lu Feng is a wind-type ability user. Turns out some other folks are watching too, identifying the attacker as one of Chief Hong's lackeys. Not one to give up, Lu Feng summons a whole barrage of wind blades to surround his target. But Xiao Hao is completely unimpressed, basically asking if that is the best this B-rank scrub has got. Xiao Hao follows up his taunt by zipping past Lu Feng, calling his B-rank status nothing but empty talk, and Lu Feng cannot even process it, wondering if our boy intentionally threw their last fight just to humiliate him now, but that moment of confusion costs him dearly as Xiao Hao's attack slams home, shattering his defenses completely, which leaves Lu Feng on his knees, absolutely refusing to believe he is being so thoroughly dominated. He just keeps screaming impossible as his body starts to crack and leak a familiar red energy, which turns out to be crimson fog, sending the other onlookers into a full-blown panic about not wanting to die. The leader of that new group, however, just finds it amusing, suggesting they toy with the imposter a bit, but her subordinate quickly stops her, claiming she has a better idea for handling the situation. While Lu Feng pulls out a mysterious vial, deciding it is time to pop his emergency power-up, and he downs the contents, revealing it lets him absorb the Crimson Fog's power without losing his mind. Now juiced up on Crimson Fog, Lu Feng roars back to life, daring our boy to face his new power. He immediately launches himself forward, a red blur of pure rage and borrowed strength, and his attack tears through the facility with a massive explosion of wind and raw energy. Xiao Hao is genuinely shocked, realizing the power-up just boosted Lu Feng's speed to a whole new level. Turns out he is now moving like an oranker, taunting our boy as he zips around him effortlessly, and Xiao Hao can barely keep up, struggling to block the relentless barrage of superfast strikes. Lu Feng lands a devastating blow that sends a massive shockwave across the entire battlefield, gloating over his opponent while asking how long he can possibly last before this little charade ends. But just as he is about to deliver the final blow, he stops dead in his tracks, sensing something is off because a massive wind barrier erupts out of nowhere, cutting him off from Xiao Hao completely. Turns out the mysterious onlooker is on their side, casting a storm's blessing to buff our boy, and Xiao Hao immediately feels the boost, his body now way lighter thanks to his new friend's technique. Lu Feng, completely oblivious, unleashes a massive crimson fog cannon, screaming for them all to die, but Xiao Hao just scoffs at the so-called absolute power, completely unimpressed by the light show. The blast just vanishes into thin air, leaving Lu Feng wondering if his attack got straight up absorbed, and before he can even process the failure, Xiao Hao is already in his face with a supercharged punch. The blow connects with enough force to send a brutal shockwave right through Lu Feng's entire body, as our boy declares he does not need cheap power-ups to win, easily shattering his opponent's defense. The final strike slams Lu Feng into the pavement, leaving him wondering what kind of monster he just fought, and with the trash taken care of, Xiao Hao demands to know exactly where Mr. Hong is hiding. Meanwhile, in a secret control room, some suits are watching the live feed, completely shocked by the outcome, and their boss cannot believe his powered-up B-rank fighter just got folded so easily. Turns out this is the infamous Mr. Hong, who admits our boy is a lot more interesting than he first thought, and with his best guy down, he orders his men to wipe all the data and prepare for an immediate retreat. He decides to leave a little parting gift for the cleanup crew, pulling out a remote detonator with a smirk which activates a strange device down below, now glowing with some very ominous red energy. Because his idea of cleanup is unleashing a massive hungry monster that has been waiting for a snack. Back on the floor, Xiao Hao tries to interrogate the very unconscious Lu Feng for Hong's location, but the guy is completely out of it, foaming at the mouth and in no shape to answer anything. And as his new ally points out the obvious, Xiao Hao just scoffs that he was not even trying at the end. Xiao Hao gets their new pet traitor to admit he is the one who sent the missing patrol team here, and with their terrified informant leading the way, the group heads deeper into the enemy facility. The goon tries to stall, claiming a password is required, but our boy is not really asking for permission. He just kicks the problem out of the way because locked doors are merely a suggestion at this point. As they move on, their guide keeps insisting he was just the delivery guy for this whole operation, but our boy suddenly stops dead in his tracks, finally sensing something important up ahead, and he immediately points the team in the right direction, finally locking onto the target. They find a high-security door, and his new ally confirms the missing people are right inside. So with brute force being a bad idea, the mysterious blonde leader steps up to handle it herself. She whips out a laptop and gets to work, confidently telling him she is an expert at this sort of thing. With her expert skills on full display, the door's high-tech security system does not stand a chance, and the lock clicks open, letting the whole crew step right into the next chamber of horrors. Turns out Green Vine has been collecting people, storing dozens of them in rows of stasis pods. And the sheer number of captives leaves the team absolutely stunned by the scale of this operation. Their new ally grabs the traitor for answers, but he just swears he was only the delivery boy. When they spot one of the missing patrolmen, Xiao Hao immediately moves to shatter the containment unit, but his new friend stops him cold, pointing out that breaking the life support is a terrible rescue plan. Just then, a call confirms Captain Song has arrived, so she orders the captives move to the storage base. Meanwhile, back at that very base, Song Rui's team spots the strange device Hong activated earlier, and it is now glowing ominously, leaving them to wonder what fresh hell is about to be unleashed. Their pet traitor starts screaming his head off as the entire room begins to shake violently, and the blonde leader immediately senses the device is releasing a strange energy fluctuation. Realizing it is packed with highly concentrated crimson fog just as the whole place starts to rumble, Xiao Hao's shadow screams for everyone to move as the device prepares to blow its top, and a crystal pops out, unleashing a volley of red energy beams across the room which hits one of Hong's leftover goons, who immediately starts to mutate from the exposure. He transforms into a monstrous red beast, a lovely side effect of inhaling pure crimson fog. Jinying is completely stunned, realizing this new monster looks exactly like her uncle did. Xiao Hao finally gets it, realizing the device is a lure designed to attract aberrations, and as he says something worse is coming, Jinying immediately volunteers to go with him. Xiao Hao tells his team to hold the line while he takes care of the lure himself, and as a helicopter circles overhead, they realize the real threat is finally making its entrance. While Mr. Hong watches from his high-rise, curious to see if our boy is even worth studying. So Xiao Hao just yeets the Crimson Fog device straight into the air, setting the bait, and the newly mutated monster immediately lunges for it, completely oblivious to the bigger picture because a colossal worm beast erupts from the ground, swallowing him and the lure whole. Turns out the first monster was just an appetizer for this absolute unit of an aberration, which now looms over the battlefield, its many red eyes fixed on its next meal. At that exact moment, a convoy of military trucks is speeding away from the disaster zone, and inside, the soldiers wonder why Song Rui sent them, only knowing about a secret lab. As the military convoy makes its escape, a massive purple energy beam suddenly cuts across the sky, and the instructor in charge immediately realizes that Worm Beast is way out of Song Rui's league. His point is proven when the beam slams into a truck, sending it careening wildly across the road, so he decides he is the only one who can handle this, activating his Beast Core gauntlets to join the fray. He orders his men to get the reinforcements to the lab while he goes on ahead to play hero, then uses some kind of jet propulsion to launch himself straight towards the colossal monster. Back on the ground, Xiao Hao powers up, wondering what fresh hell has just arrived on his doorstep. Turns out it is a behemoth-class aberration called a Keelong, and his new ally is not impressed by its size. The beast lets out a roar, its many red eyes locking onto its next potential meal. So Xiao Hao and the blonde leader flare their auras, getting ready for a very big fight. The Keelong lets out a deafening roar, its many mouths ready for a fresh meal, so Xiao Hao immediately activates his beastification, forming a massive, jagged red claw, and launches himself forward to meet the behemoth with a full-power slash which just scrapes harmlessly off the monster's ridiculously tough hide. His new ally immediately suggests a tactical retreat, realizing they cannot even scratch it, but he refuses, ordering her to evacuate the lab captives while he holds the beast off. She is absolutely not on board with this suicide mission, refusing to leave him behind. But he cannot let this thing destroy his only lid, so he charges back into the fight anyway. Meanwhile, the hacker from their team discovers the captive's data has been completely wiped, and she just smirks, realizing they are up against an expert who knows how to cover their tracks. Meanwhile, reinforcements finally arrive at the now secured Green Vine lab reporting for duty, and they find Captain Jia, who just grins that he is fine since Xiao Hao already rescued him. A new adjutant named Tangy introduces himself, here to support Song Rui's rebellion suppression, and he immediately asks for a status update, learning they're just guarding the facility for now. Tangy then casually asks where his brother, the overall commander Lin Yongxin, has gotten to. Turns out his brother is busy zipping around the Keelong, his shadow attacks bouncing off its hide. The beast just roars in annoyance, completely unfazed by the high-speed gnat on its back, forcing Lin Yongxin to dodge a massive tail swipe that tears through the air right next to him. He manages to land on the creature's back, looking for any kind of weak spot to exploit, then slams his hands down, unleashing a poison attack to try and get through its armor. With the poison attack doing nothing, the Keelong snags Xiao Hao with a tendril, yanking him in for a snack, and the beast opens wide, ready to swallow him whole as he struggles against its grip. But his new ally powers up a mini railgun, telling the monster to back the hell off, and she unleashes a massive energy beam that blasts him free from the creature's maw. The effort leaves her drained, admitting only Xiao Hao can pull off these stunts without proper gear, so naturally the Keelong lunges for her, but our boy shoves her out of the way just in time. Its fiery counterattack completely misses, blasting a crater into the ground where she just stood. And that is when the reinforcements commander, Lin Yongxin, finally joins them on the ground. The whole team can only stare up at the behemoth-class monster, realizing how outmatched they are, but Lin Yongxin just declares he will handle it, revealing he is a rank fire user ready for a fight. Lin Yongxin immediately unleashes a massive fire dragon, a flashy opening move for the ranker, and Xiao Hao can only watch, realizing just how big the gap is between him and a true top-tier fighter. Even his new ally is left speechless by the sheer scale of the commander's fiery assault, which wraps around the Keelong, but the behemoth just roars through the flames, completely unbothered. Realizing his big entrance did not work, Lin Yongxin admits this fight is going to be a problem, and sure enough, the Keelong emerges from the inferno without so much as a scratch on its hide. Annoyed his best shot failed, the commander powers up another blast, ready for round 2. But the beast retaliates first, unleashing a massive sandstorm-like blast straight from its maw which completely engulfs the battlefield, kicking up a huge cloud of dust and debris. With their vision totally blocked, Lin Yongxin yells for everyone to stay on their guard. Inside the dust cloud, Xiao Hao realizes the fight is not over just because he cannot see, because the Keelong immediately burrows underground, setting up for a nasty surprise attack. He shoves his ally aside just as the beast erupts from the ground, a classic ambush predator move. The behemoth's massive body bursts from the pavement, ready for another round of absolute chaos. Lin Yongxin confirms everyone's okay, but Xiao Hao knows they're sitting ducks in this dust cloud. Just then, a massive wind pressure bullet clears the air, revealing some unexpected backup, and a new blonde wind user lands with a flourish, cheerfully asking if everyone survived the ambush. His railgun-wielding ally is shocked, demanding to know what is happening with the underground base. Turns out Tang Yi's team has already secured the facility and is evacuating all the captives. With the civilians safe, the new girl rallies the team to distract the beast and find an opening. As the Qiulong tries to burrow underground, Lin Yongxin tells it there is absolutely no escape, so he and the Wind User immediately combine their powers, unleashing a massive fire and wind attack. And their storm's blessing completely engulfs the behemoth in a swirling vortex of elemental energy, tearing through its tough hide and seemingly ripping the monster to absolute shreds. The Qiulong lets out a final roar as its body starts to crack and crumble from the blast, but Xiao Hao is completely stunned to see it is somehow still alive after taking that direct hit. Commander Lin Yongxin realizes the beast has a rare regeneration ability, meaning they have to destroy its core. His ally points out the obvious flaw: finding a tiny core inside that massive, regenerating body is impossible. Before they can argue, the Qiulong unleashes another blast, and the Wind User admits she cannot block it for long, so a new woman with white hair steps up, her body crackling with intense purple lightning. The new white-haired girl powers up, using her electromagnetic ability to scan the entire behemoth. And her lightning forms a spectral probe, zeroing in on the massive energy source deep inside the monster. She finds it, calling out the core's exact location before nearly collapsing from the sheer strain of it all. Commander Lin Yongxin immediately orders her taken to safety, clearly annoyed by her reckless move. With the weak spot revealed, he taunts the Qiulong, gathering a massive amount of fire for the kill shot. Then blasts the monster's side with a concentrated fire attack, creating a huge explosion on impact. The attack rips a hole right through its hide, finally exposing the glowing red core within. The blonde Wind User immediately follows up, screaming for everyone to keep attacking the new weak spot, but their combined attacks just bounce off because the core's natural defense is way too tough. Xiao Hao knows they need a Crimson Fog bullet, but he is completely tapped out after his fight with Lu Feng. Just then, a vial of concentrated Crimson Fog, knocked loose in the chaos, lands right at his feet. So with no other options, he shatters the container and jams the raw energy crystal into his chest, immediately overloading his system with an agonizing power surge that is way beyond normal. Meanwhile, the Qiulong lunges for the rest of the team, who are completely defenseless against its charge, and the behemoth opens its maw, ready to swallow the commander and his injured ally whole, leaving Lin Yongxin to watch in horror, realizing they are about to become a mid-battle snack, absolutely convinced this is the end of the line for both of them. But a roar cuts through the chaos as Xiao Hao, now juiced up on pure energy, gets its attention. Unleashing a massive, crimson supergiant blast, straight at the monster's exposed core, screaming for it to take everything he's got in one final, all-or-nothing shot. With all that raw crimson fog coursing through him, he unleashes his final, desperate attack, and the massive energy blast rockets straight towards the Qiulong's exposed core, slamming into the weak spot with enough force to light up the entire sky, and the resulting explosion completely vaporizes the behemoth in a blinding flash. With the threat finally neutralized, our boy suddenly finds himself standing in a dark void when a familiar voice calls out, and he turns to see his sister Xiao Zhu running toward him. She crashes into his arms, crying about where he has been and apologizing for everything, leaving him completely stunned as he asks what she is even doing in a place like this. She looks back at him just as confused, asking what he means by here. Because they are both stranded in some empty, dark dimension with no clue how they got there. But their reunion is cut short when his sister's hand suddenly erupts in a burst of flames, and the fire immediately engulfs his entire body as Xiao Zhu screams his name in horror. He is completely consumed by the inferno, writhing in absolute agony. And as she reaches for him, he is dragged away, desperately warning her to stay back. The whole thing feels way too real, sending him into a cold sweat. As he is forced to watch her burn, screaming for him to save her from the flames. Turns out it was all a nightmare because he jolts awake in a high-tech hospital bed. Instructor Lin is there to greet him, explaining he is in a special facility just in case he goes feral. The kid's been out for 3 whole days, and Lin admits he was ready to put him down if needed. Xiao Hao just smiles, realizing his babysitter is really here to kill him if he loses control. Lin confirms the Qiulong is dead and all the captives have been safely moved to this lab, but Xiao Hao's first question is about someone named A Shuo, rescued from the Green Vine base. Just then, his blonde ally rushes in, absolutely relieved to see he is finally awake, and her team immediately swarms him, amazed he has 0 signs of infection or mutation. The medic is baffled, realizing his biology has basically surpassed the scope of a normal human. So he just shoves her away, clearly not in the mood for a full-body inspection. He ignores his own condition and desperately asks again about what happened to A Shuo. They show him A Shuo, who is unconscious in an isolation pod, saturated with crimson fog, and the medic explains that while he is stable, he is not going to wake up anytime soon. Absolutely furious, Xiao Hao slams the wall, blaming Zhang Shi for whatever twisted experiment this was. Instructor Lin reports that their captive traitor, Zhang Shi, has already confessed to everything, and Xiao Hao immediately demands to know what he said, expecting a direct link to Green Vine. Just then, Captain Song Rui steps in, revealing Zhang Shi conveniently took the fall for the whole operation, but our boy is not buying it, pointing out there is no way one guy ran the labs, the beasts, and Mr. Hong. Song Rui agrees, concluding that even with his confession, an invisible hand is clearly manipulating events. Her theory gets cut short when she is summoned to meet with the chief of the general staff, and as they walk, Xiao Hao asks how she found him, only to learn Jin Ying snitched on his location. He is immediately annoyed, realizing he has now got a personal stalker monitoring his every move. The group arrives at a lavish office door and is immediately waved right inside. Turns out the chief of staff is Jin Ying's dad, who is just chilling and eating snacks by himself. The chief of staff calmly tells everyone to take a seat, ready to get straight to business, and he skips the small talk, revealing news of Xiao Hao's big fight has already made him a target. With our boy now in the eye of a political storm, the chief asks what his next move is. Xiao Hao admits this blew up way bigger than he planned and wants to know the chief's angle. So the old man brings up their pet traitor Zhang Shi, and Xiao Hao agrees the guy is hiding something. Turns out Green Vine is officially denying everything, and with no proof, the military's hands are tied. Another official adds that with military infighting, they cannot afford to investigate a major partner like Green Vine, so Xiao Hao immediately asks who these higher-ups are that are blocking the entire investigation. The chief reveals the order comes from the absolute apex of the SU government itself, which is when Xiao Hao asks to borrow the chief's power, ready to make a very big deal. Xiao Hao immediately sees through the chief's game, realizing the old fox just wants a disposable pawn. His blonde ally protests, pointing out that Xiao Hao is already in the middle of a political firestorm, but the chief just lays out the cold logic it is better to be the hunter than the hunted. He gives our boy time to think it over, putting Instructor Lin in charge of the group for now. Mulling it over, Xiao Hao decides he is done being prey and it is time to start hunting instead. It leads him to a massive training ground for a new 3-month comprehensive training program, which is really just a front to weed out spies and unify the military's fractured ranks. He is using this training as a buffer, needing the chief's power to find his sister, Xiao Zhu. A new point system is introduced for the recruits, and Xiao Hao is already at the top with a massive lead, realizing his 210 points must be a reward for the 2 massive incidents he just survived. Naturally, the other trainees are already whining about how Xiao Hao got so many points for one fight, and one particularly salty guy, Zhang Jin, insists Instructor Lin must have done all the real work. His allies immediately jump to his defense, telling the loudmouth that Xiao Hao would absolutely flatten him, but before things get too heated, a new captain named Tang Yi steps in to play peacemaker, who confirms the points are legit but decides the best way to settle this is a public demonstration. So he challenges Xiao Hao to a friendly spar to show everyone what the top scorer can do, and his blonde ally immediately bets a fortune on him, already planning how to spend the winnings. Xiao Hao agrees, figuring this is the perfect way to shut everyone up and establish some authority. The crowd immediately starts betting against him since Captain Tang is the strongest beer anchor around, and Tang Yi gets right to it, summoning an ice gauntlet and daring our boy to show him his power. Tang Yi kicks things off by summoning a massive wall of ice spikes, showing off his unique beast core armament. Xiao Hao immediately leaps into the air, easily dodging the flashy opening attack. And he lands, realizing this beer anchor's power is way stronger than Lu Feng's ever was. But the captain is not done, immediately launching a barrage of razor-sharp ice shards, forcing our boy to weave through the deadly storm as his allies shout a warning. He notes that while the attacks are powerful, they are nowhere near as fast as Lu Feng's, just as Tang Yi slams the ground with a glacial star slash to keep up the pressure, which sends a massive wave of pure ice energy tearing across the entire training ground. With the attack closing in, Xiao Hao decides he has seen enough of this little ice show, activating his beastification and zipping past Tang Yi so fast the captain cannot even react. Before Xiao Hao can land the final blow, Instructor Lin erupts in flames, calling a stop to the match. He declares our boy the winner, and Xiao Hao just smirks, asking Tang Yi if he has any objections. The captain concedes completely, admitting Xiao Hao was clearly holding back and basically let him win. All the onlookers are stunned that their top beer anchor just got folded by a total rookie, and while Xiao Hao shuts down the haters, his blonde ally is already celebrating her massive gambling payout. That one salty trainee, Zhang Jin, is watching from the sidelines, absolutely stewing over the power gap, which quickly turns into a personal vow to get stronger by any means necessary just to kill him. 1 month later, we cut to a fancy office where a man in a lab coat has some urgent news. He reports that a vicious beastman attacked the northwest region before vanishing near Cyan Town, and the lab coat guy confirms the worst analysis shows the monster is his missing younger brother. The researcher confirms the odds of a beastman recovering its sanity are basically zero, since the transformation corrupts the mind. He then warns the man in charge that if Song Rui finds out he plans to just eliminate the target, she will never forgive him. But the boss is all business, coldly stating that some sacrifices are necessary to protect the greater good. Meanwhile, Song Rui herself is just getting out of the shower when her phone starts ringing off the hook. And it is an urgent call with some major intel, so she immediately tells the person on the line to spill it. Whatever she heard was enough to send her sprinting down the hall, fully dressed and ready for a fight. She bursts straight into her father's office, demanding to know why he kept news about her uncle a secret. Her dad, completely unfazed, just tells her to stay out of it and let his special action team handle the situation. That is not happening, and she immediately begs him to let her go along on the mission. He just stares her down, asking if she'd have the guts to pull the trigger on her own uncle if he gave the order. Song Rui tries to argue, but her dad just benches her, relieving her of duty and confining her to base. So naturally, she immediately heads for the underground parking lot to go rogue anyway, where Jin Ying is already waiting, having predicted this exact escape plan. She hands over a bag of supplies and promises to run interference, reminding Song Rui this favor will not be cheap. A flashback reveals her uncle once saved her from a massive spider beast, screaming for her to run, and she regrets her past fear, realizing things might have been different if she'd been stronger back then. Now filled with resolve, she speeds off, vowing to find a cure for her uncle no matter what. Meanwhile, back at the base cafeteria, Xiao Hao and his team are having a meal together. Jin Ying is there, smugly taking credit for the feast and telling Xiao Hao he has finally learned some manners. One of their allies is practically in tears over the good food, while Xiao Hao just tells him to chill out and eat. With Song Rui and Lin conveniently absent, Jin Ying treats the team to a victory feast with her new cash. Explaining that the captain is on personal leave while the adjutant is tied up with other missions. Xiao Hao mulls this over, trying to figure out Song Rui's real angle since she is not acting like a recruiter. His deep thoughts are immediately interrupted by Jin Ying's phone buzzing mid-bite, and whatever she sees on the screen is enough to make her drop her chopsticks in shock. She immediately shoves the phone in Xiao Hao's face, showing him some very urgent news. Because their comatose friend Aishu has finally woken up, sending the whole team scrambling. As they rush out, Xiao Hao tells them to call someone named Ali, much to Jin Ying's confusion since he promised Ali he'd help find his brother once Aishu was conscious again. Inside the medical facility, Aishu is awake, looking dazed but alive after his ordeal in the stasis pod. They arrive to find Aishu awake and getting a tearful hug from his brother Ali, who is just glad he is alive. Xiao Hao, ever the professional, immediately interrupts the touching moment to start his interrogation. Aishu is completely lost until his brother explains that Xiao Hao is the one who rescued them both, and wasting no time, our boy pulls out a photo of his sister, asking if Aishu has any memory of her. The guy stares at the picture, clearly trying to place the girl's face from his past. So Jin Ying jumps in with the specifics, reminding him about a search and rescue mission from back in March. That jogs his memory, flashing back to the day the Crimson Fog first erupted and the military scrambled a rescue team, recalling how he was sent into a city center that was a total nightmare of mutated monsters and carnage. Amidst all the chaos, his squad found the girl from the photo sitting alone near a crashed helicopter. And while she was not physically hurt, the girl had total amnesia, unable to remember a single thing. Aishu continues his story, explaining they sent the amnesiac girl to a military-run shelter for safety, but a couple days later, some suits with suspiciously perfect paperwork showed up to take her for psychological treatment. So naturally, Xiao Hao wants to know exactly where these mystery men took his sister, and Aishu confirms he escorted her himself to a place called Cyan Town. His memory conveniently cuts out right after that, only recalling an accident after leaving town on new orders. Jin Ying immediately connects the dots, realizing that is the exact same place Song Rui's beastman uncle appeared. And speaking of which, Song Rui is already on site, scouting the outer mountains of that very town, where she spots some shady-looking guards patrolling a remote mountain path, wondering what they are protecting. Turns out the guards are beefing up security because their boss is getting paranoid about being exposed. And from her hiding spot, she sees them loading trucks with dozens of massive, mysterious egg-like pods. Song Rui watches the shady operation, knowing whatever's in those trucks is definitely not standard issue. But her stealth mission is immediately compromised when a hidden surveillance camera spots her lurking nearby. With her cover blown, the guards immediately spot her standing out in the open canyon path, and the lead goon orders his men to capture her and alert the boss, immediately opening fire. She easily dodges the bullets, deciding a tactical retreat is the best way to handle this mess, and sprints through the rocky terrain as the guards give chase, determined to catch their new guest. They quickly close the distance, swarming her from all sides and cutting off her only escape route. So realizing she is cornered, she decides running is over and powers up some serious purple lightning which she immediately unleashes, blasting the entire squad of goons off their feet in one move. Turns out she is holding back, admitting her stealth gloves are more than enough to handle these small fry. With the small fry down, the remaining guards finally realize they are up against an actual ability user. And just then their much bigger boss charges in, screaming at her for trespassing on his turf. Song Rui just gives him a death glare, completely unimpressed by his dramatic entrance, so she hits him with a full-power lightning blast right to the chest, but the guy just laughs it off, claiming her best shot did not even tickle. He easily grabs her wrist, completely neutralizing her electrical attack with his bare hand. Then just eats her across the canyon, showing off some serious brute strength. Turns out this underground boss is a beer anchor, and he is not in the mood for games, demanding to know exactly who sent her to his little operation. But Song Rui lands perfectly, realizing her attack failed because he is an ability user too. The boss orders his men to take her down, sending the whole squad rushing in at once, but she just unleashes another wave of purple lightning, dropping the cannon fodder instantly. And realizes her electricity is not working on the boss, who is just standing there completely unfazed. So she decides to focus all her power into one shot, hoping to at least paralyze the big guy, launching a full-power electromagnetic annihilation blast straight into his chest, and the concentrated beam of energy hits him dead-on with a massive impact. When the smoke clears, he is still standing, admitting he'd be toast without his special gear. Turns out he is rocking a military combat suit that amps his abilities and makes him a walking tank. Song Rui is completely floored, recognizing the top-tier military hardware and wondering how he got it, so he just orders his men to capture her for interrogation, with a very nasty reward for them afterwards. With Song Rui drained from her last attack, one of the goons charges in for an easy kill, but he gets blasted in the face by an energy beam that comes out of absolutely nowhere, sending him flying as some unexpected backup finally arrives on the scene. Turns out Xiao Hao is here, casually asking if she is okay after her little solo mission, and the boss immediately assumes our boy is just another one of her accomplices. So he offers his men a cut of the profits if they take the new arrivals down, sending the whole squad charging in at once to claim their big payday. But before they get close, another ally powers up a massive wind attack, unleashing a swirling vortex that sends the entire mob flying in every direction. The boss is left completely stunned, demanding to know who these new ability users are. The new wind user immediately starts yelling at the boss for daring to attack her Rui Rui, but the guy just powers up a nasty purple aura, screaming that all trespassers have to die, and Song Rui warns everyone that he is a B-rank ability user, making this a serious fight. So naturally, Xiao Hao just holds up one finger, promising he can solve this in a single second. The boss is absolutely insulted by the kid's confidence and charges in to make him eat those words, only for Xiao Hao to meet him head-on, completely unimpressed by the dramatic entrance, and he lands a beastification heavy strike right to the jaw, calling the guy too noisy, which is apparently the perfect way to test out all the new moves he learned in training. The B-ranker gets absolutely flattened by the single punch, knocked out cold on the spot, and with the big threat neutralized, Xiao Hao calmly tells the team it is time to go. With the local welcoming committee handled, the team makes a quick getaway on a surprisingly cool motorcycle, and after finding a quiet spot, Xiao Hao immediately calls out Song Rui for ditching training to come here, asking if the goons they just flattened were her target as she calmly eats a sandwich. But she just claims she snuck out, putting on the most unconvincing serious face imaginable, leaving Xiao Hao completely baffled by her terrible lying skills while their ally just enjoys the free snacks. So Song Rui pivots, asking why the gang was after her, and Xiao Hao explains they are a local crew he has been tracking, though he admits they are not his real target, just a side quest he stumbled upon near their mountain base. Which is when she finally confesses she is here for her uncle, who is infected by crimson fog and last seen in this area, and Xiao Hao immediately guesses her dad, the chief of staff, officially benched her from this very personal mission, so she confirms it, warning him her uncle's transformation is far more severe and dangerous than Lu Feng's ever was. Song Rui is drowning in guilt, convinced her uncle's monstrous transformation is all her fault. And she finally admits she only recruited Xiao Hao to use his power to find a cure. Our boy connects the dots, realizing her whole recruitment pitch was just a desperate deal to save family. He agrees to help, promising to do his best even if this new beast is on a whole other level. Song Rui looks genuinely relieved, thanking him for taking on her impossible mission. With the emotional baggage sorted, their blonde ally tells everyone it is time to get moving. Song Rui then asks the obvious question, why was Xiao Hao even in this town to begin with? Turns out Aishu finally woke up and confirmed his sister was brought here 6 months ago. He explains the locals are hostile, but he is sure his sister's case and her uncle's are connected. And with their goals now aligned, Xiao Hao vows he will find his sister no matter what it takes. The team makes their way into Xian Town, which immediately proves to be less than welcoming. And their blonde ally is already fighting off locals, complaining they have kicked a hornet's nest. Song Rui, completely over these distractions, decides they are just going to punch their way through. Just as they clear a path, another goon slips past their guard, forcing them back into the fight. Their ally drops him with a quick wind blast, but the entire town is clearly on high alert now. Before they can catch a breath, Xiao Hao senses a new figure emerging from the shadows. And it is Captain Tang Yi who casually strolls in to announce he is on their side. He tells them to follow him since a public street is not exactly the best place for a debrief. Turns out Song Rui's dad sent him to find her uncle and, more importantly, to babysit her. She immediately asks if he came alone, clearly worried about the mission's actual difficulty. Tang Yi lays out the bad news: they found Beastman tracks, but an Overlord-class monster is guarding the area. He then tries to get Song Rui to back off, promising her dad will forgive her little rogue mission. But she is not leaving her uncle behind, and her blonde ally is more than ready to throw down for her. Seeing he cannot stop them, Tang Yi caves and agrees to lead them down a hidden path he found. He quickly shoots off a text to his own team, letting them know about the sudden change in plans. When Xiao Hao asks if he happened to spot a research lab anywhere in the mountains, Tang Yi confirms they saw an abandoned building that fits the description, wondering how he knew. Our boy realizes the lab Aishio mentioned was hidden out here, making this a must-see destination. They arrive at a secluded mountain pass, which Tang Yi notes is suspiciously unmonitored. Before they head in, Song Rui stops Xiao Hao and hands him a massive cloth-wrapped weapon. Turns out the weapon is a grand gift Song Rui had upgraded for him with a beast core and a small fortune. Tang Yi immediately starts complaining about payment for guiding them, but gets told to do the job first. He leads them into a rocky canyon, warning everyone to stay on high alert as they approach the camp. Just then, their blonde ally's scanner goes wild, picking up some seriously chaotic energy readings nearby. And that is because a massive, camouflaged python is watching them from the cliffs, ready to strike. The beast lunges, spitting a stream of pure poison right at the unsuspecting group below, catching their ally completely off guard as the attack closes in way too fast to dodge. But Tang Yi dives in front of her, throwing up a last-second ice shield to block the spray. His shield shatters on impact, and he still gets splashed with the corrosive poison anyway. He collapses, warning them about the beast, but Xiao Hao realizes he reacted like he knew who it would target. With the captain down, Xiao Hao tells everyone to back off, deciding to handle the giant snake himself, and the python lunges straight for him, not realizing it just picked a fight with the wrong guy because our boy zips past in a blur, leaving the Overlord-class beast riddled with deep cuts. Tang Yi can only watch, admitting he was a fool to ever think he could actually spar with Xiao Hao, while his blonde ally smugly confirms he is their ace as our boy powers up his beastification. But just as he is about to finish the job, Xiao Hao senses something else is very wrong here, because the entire canyon starts to shake as the ground erupts violently from below. A massive flaming minotaur bursts from the earth, another Overlord-class monster crashing the party, and right behind it, a steel-backed burrowing lizard also emerges, leaving the team completely stunned. Turns out their intel was garbage, because now there are 3 Overlord beasts here instead of 1. Just when things could not get worse, a new guy in a red jacket pops up, apparently the ringleader of this whole monster party. He taunts Xiao Hao, claiming he was just careless last time and is now ready for a proper rematch. Our boy realizes this guy can actually control the aberrations, and with way more precision than he has ever seen before. Tang Yi, despite being poisoned, volunteers to hold off the giant snake so the others can focus on the new threats. So Xiao Hao agrees they need to split up, and Song Rui's white-haired ally immediately calls dibs on the flaming minotaur. With the plan set, everyone charges into action as Tang Yi squares off against the massive python, and he immediately traps the beast in a massive cage of jagged ice, buying the team some valuable time. The boss just laughs, boasting that with the burrowing lizard's defense, it is now 4 against 1. Xiao Hao gives him a dead-eyed stare, completely unimpressed by his terrible math skills, and tells him to take that back as his ally steps up to the minotaur, ready to even the odds. The white-haired girl powers up, looking like someone you absolutely do not want to provoke, and she is clearly a fan of her new lightning-infused railgun, ready to give it a test run, so the flaming minotaur happily volunteers, charging straight at her with a furious roar. It slams the ground with a fiery shockwave, but she easily dodges the attack, flipping through the air to line up the perfect shot and unleashing a full-power blast, which hits the behemoth dead-on, sending the Overlord-class monster flying backward from the impact. Meanwhile, Xiao Hao faces off against the steel-backed burrowing lizard, his claws already out. He closes the distance in a flash, landing a brutal slash against its armored hide. While their blonde ally launches a twin blast of razor-sharp wind from a safe distance, and the monster controller just watches from his perch as the attack comes right for him. The blonde ally is completely shocked to see her wind attack get casually negated by the monster controller, who apparently can just summon a weird energy beast to eat elemental attacks for breakfast. With her main offense useless, she lands back beside Xiao Hao, realizing they need a new strategy. But our boy just smirks, telling her to leave it to him and some unexpected backup. A new ally with black hair steps forward, summoning some seriously sinister-looking red energy tendrils, and he and the wind user immediately combine their powers, unleashing a massive elemental vortex which slams directly into the steel-backed burrowing lizard with devastating force, actually managing to crack its tough hide and making the Overlord-class beast roar in agony. The lizard is not going down easy, immediately firing twin energy beams right at the new guy, who takes the full blast head-on, getting knocked back and clearly injured from the counterattack. The new black-haired ally gets right in the monster controller's face, looking ready to throw down, but instead shoves the guy aside, yelling for him to get out of the way of an attack, and takes the lizard's energy beam head-on, which erupts in a massive burst of red energy. Turns out he has got some serious elemental resistance, tanking the blast that would have vaporized anyone else, then immediately retaliates with a massive energy claw, slashing deep into the lizard's armored side. At the same time, the flaming minotaur is getting absolutely pummeled by a flurry of lightning attacks, leaving the white-haired girl stunned that she actually just soloed an Overlord-class monster by herself. Her blonde ally runs up cheering that she is also finished, meaning 2 of the 3 beasts are down, but their celebration is cut short when the giant python roars, finally shattering its ice prison, leaving a poisoned Tang Yi struggling to hold the crumbling ice wall together with everything he has left. Tang Yi, poisoned and barely standing, vows to hold the python back to protect the rest of the team. So the white-haired girl and her black-haired ally immediately leap in to provide some heavy-duty fire support, unleashing a massive combined energy blast that slams right into the giant snake's face, and the black-haired ally follows up with a brutal claw strike, finally putting the last beast down for good. With all 3 monsters handled, the team regroups, and the white-haired girl compliments her new gun. While Tang Yi, looking surprisingly okay, just praises their flawless teamwork in the fight. Realizing his entire monster squad just got wiped, the controller decides it is time for a tactical retreat. But he is immediately cornered by 2 new guys with guns who are clearly not here to negotiate. Turns out it is Tang Yi's backup, and he tells them they have arrived at the perfect time for an interrogation. which apparently starts with one of his men grabbing the controller by the throat to get some answers. Tang Yi's backup does not waste time, and the monster controller immediately starts begging for his life, so they demand to know what he is doing in a locked-down mountain range, clearly not buying any excuses. He immediately cracks, admitting they are running a secret mining operation for some rare red energy crystals. And in a desperate bid to survive, he offers them the entire mine, pointing them right to the location. Tang Yi's team confirms they saw some crystal debris earlier, realizing his story actually checks out, but Xiao Hao cuts in, way more interested in how this guy can control aberrations than some shiny rocks. His white-haired ally adds another question, demanding to know where he got that military-grade combat suit. And when the controller hesitates, his interrogator tightens the grip, clearly not in the mood for silence. He finally spills that a mysterious benefactor has been bankrolling his entire operation from the shadows, just as a massive beastman rises behind them, very much alive and ready for round two. The beastman immediately lunges forward, interrupting the interrogation with a knife aimed right at the team. Meanwhile, a mysterious cloaked figure arrives at the entrance to the Cyan Town mine and heads straight into a cavern filled with glowing red energy crystals. The figure confirms this is the right place, clearly here for these specific rocks, and reaches out a hand that is covered in some kind of dark, creeping corruption. The crystal's energy immediately purges the darkness, seemingly healing the affliction on contact, which is apparently just a temporary fix to suppress some kind of erosion for a while. With the corruption held at bay, the figure continues deeper into the mine, mission not yet complete. Just then, the cloak drops to reveal a red-haired woman with a horn who suddenly senses something amiss, and she is furious, demanding to know who is out there controlling the local aberrations. Back in the valley, the interrogation is cut short by the beastman's furious roar, who immediately lunges for the blonde ally, planning to kill her and escape in the chaos. And she is completely frozen as the knife comes flying straight for her throat, but the fatal blow is suddenly intercepted by an unexpected and very bloody block. Turns out Tang Yi's interrogator jumped in front of her, taking the blade right through his hand, which just enrages the beastman, who powers up an ice attack to finish them both off, unleashing a massive glacial wave meant to shred everything in its path, only for a combined energy blast to intercept the attack and vaporize him on the spot. Tang Yi's white-haired ally immediately demands to know why he killed their only lid, but the injured interrogator just says it was instinct, leaving them with zero new intel. The interrogator explains he had to kill their only lead because the guy was trying to shank Jin Ying, but Song Rui immediately calls BS internally, knowing Jin Ying could have dodged that attack in her sleep. Her ally just doubles down, insisting he'd rather make a mistake than risk a teammate getting hurt. Deciding it is not worth the argument, she tells him to get his injured hand treated back at camp. Meanwhile, the red-haired woman from the mine is watching the entire military squad from a distance, and her eyes lock onto one person in the group with a look of absolute shock, which is the exact moment Xiao Hao feels a stare and instinctively glances back in her direction. Song Rui asks what is wrong, but he just brushes it off, thinking he must be imagining things. As the team walks away, the horned woman is left completely stunned, fixated on who she just saw, because a flashback confirms she recognizes Xiao Hao from a past memory involving his sister. The horned woman is completely losing it, screaming as a painful memory seems to overwhelm her, while the team arrives at the abandoned lab and Tang Yi's guy confirms it is totally deserted. But Xiao Hao knows abandoned is just code for secret evil stuff happened here, connecting the dots instantly, so he immediately bolts for the building, and Jin Ying tells the others she will babysit him while they search. She sprints after him, trying to get him to slow down before he breaks down the door, which is way too late, as he bursts inside shouting to see if anyone's still around. He finds himself in the exact dusty, abandoned lab Ashuo described, which is never a good sign. And Jin Ying follows him in, confirming the place looks like it has been collecting dust for ages. Back outside, Tang Yi's backup decides to leave the ghost hunting to them and search somewhere else, so the two of them head off into the canyon, splitting the party for maximum efficiency, or danger. Song Rui's ally asks Tang Yi's man if his orders from the chief were really just a simple search and rescue. And he confirms the chief of staff gave him some less than charitable secondary instructions, revealing his backup plan is to annihilate the target if things go south, though he claims he will make the final call. Back at their temporary camp, the teams regroup to share what little intel they have gathered so far, and while Tang's team found nothing, Xiao Hao's crew managed to snag a hard drive and a very suspicious diary. Jin Ying immediately gets to work cracking the hard drive while the others check out the book, which details a crimson fog leak from April that conveniently infected a whole lot of townspeople. The next entry confirms the military's purification was a massacre to secretly capture survivors for beastification research, and the last page mentions a behemoth-class monster and a top-priority alpha research subject, a girl who had to be protected. Just as they are trying to process that bombshell, Jin Ying triumphantly announces the hard drive is officially fixed. Jin Ying's eyes go wide as she pulls up a file showing a mysterious girl in a white lab uniform who is labeled as a subject and appears to be floating inside some kind of high-tech containment unit. She immediately calls Xiao Hao over, knowing this is the exact bombshell they have been looking for. Explaining she recovered a partition from the hard drive that is about to get very personal for them. Xiao Hao is completely stunned to see his sister's face on the screen, identified as the alpha research subject. Just then, Tangy's interrogator strolls over, wondering what has got everyone so worked up all of a sudden. He glances at the screen, which now displays a whole gallery of twisted beastmen from the lab's experiments. Xiao Hao decides to keep the diary a secret since it directly implicates the military and his sister by name. Song Rui sees a flicker of hope, thinking this data might hold the key to reversing her uncle's transformation, and her ally points to an unopened folder on the drive, asking what other secrets they are about to uncover. Jin Ying opens the next folder, revealing a photo of Xiao Zhu standing before a massive behemoth-class monster. Xiao Hao is completely floored, wondering why his sister is just casually hanging out with a city-ending aberration. The interrogator immediately panics, realizing if that thing is still alive, the entire region is basically screwed. After Jin Ying confirms the photo is 3 months old, he analyzes the shadows to pinpoint the exact location and immediately declares he is taking his squad to the West Side Valley to investigate the monster's current status. With that, he and his partner are out the door, leaving the rest of the team to keep digging through the data. Song Rui then pulls up another file showing a subject whose stats are superhuman but do not match any known beastman records, and the name on the file, Hong Zhangnan, immediately rings a bell for Xiao Hao from a past investigation. Song Rui confirms her dad was looking into a Mr. Hong's ties to a group called Green Vine, a major new lead. With the clues finally connecting, Xiao Hao vows to find that monster, convinced it is the key to finding his sister. The white-haired ally decides to join the monster hunt, and Jin Ying immediately volunteers as extra backup. So the newly formed squad heads into the desolate West Valley, ready to track down a city-ending monster, where one of the men immediately spots a massive silhouette camouflaged against the distant rock wall. Turns out massive was an understatement, because the behemoth is practically part of the mountain itself. The interrogator realizes its natural camouflage is exactly why their earlier search came up completely empty. Jin Ying pulls out her scanner, confirming its vitals are super weak and it is basically in a deep sleep, so naturally they all decide to walk right up to the slumbering behemoth for a much closer look. One of the guys is completely starstruck, admitting it is his first time seeing a monster of this scale. At that exact moment, Jin Ying's scanner starts screaming as the monster's energy levels spike violently, and she barely has time to shout a warning before the behemoth's glowing red eye snaps right open. The behemoth erupts with a furious roar, revealing it was just playing dead the entire time. And as the team scrambles for a defensive formation, one of them throws up a last-second ice wall, which does absolutely nothing as the monster starts charging up a massive fire breath attack, completely vaporizing their flimsy defense and sending the entire squad flying from the blast. With molten rock splashing everywhere, the interrogator yells for someone to call for backup immediately, but Jin Ying realizes the beast is not just attacking, it is terraforming the canyon to trap them all. Knowing they cannot possibly wait for help, the team decides they have to stop it themselves right now, and the white-haired ally points out it is still stuck in the mountain and weak, giving them an opening. So she rallies the group, deciding this is the perfect time to test out their new team combos. Jin Ying unleashes a massive wind attack while Xiao Hao zips in, hitting the beast with a coordinated strike. The black-haired ally slams the ground, sending a wave of crimson energy spikes at the beast, which just seems to annoy the behemoth more than actually hurt it. So the interrogator chugs a quick stimpack, deciding this is the perfect time for a tactical retreat, and yells for everyone to fall back while the monster is still distracted by their little love taps, but unfortunately for them, distracted is just another word for absolutely furious. As the behemoth starts to violently break free from its rocky prison, much to everyone's horror, shattering the mountain wall that was their one and only strategic advantage in this fight, leaving the team to realize their weak target is about to become a very mobile problem. And with a deafening roar, the monster finally stands at its full, terrifying height, immediately lunging forward to turn the entire squad into a fine red paste. The interrogator realizes if they do not stop this thing right now, the entire town is about to be flattened, and he tells Captain Tang that backup is a fantasy, so they are the only ones who can stop this monster. But Tang Yi immediately orders the B team to fall back, admitting they are completely outmatched for this fight just as the behemoth unleashes another massive fire breath, forcing everyone to scramble for their lives. As the blast closes in, Tang Yi steps forward, his hand glowing with some serious ice power, and declares he will handle it, ready to meet the inferno head-on with his own elemental might. He throws up a massive glacial star slash, creating a colossal ice wall to block the attack, which holds strong, earning him a very impressed thumbs up from a surprised Jin Ying. With the defense handled, Tang Yi tells the others to go on the offensive while he plays tank. But Xiao Hao is watching, wondering why Tang Yi is suddenly so powerful after his shield got wrecked earlier. The white-haired girl notices Xiao Hao's hesitation, asking what is on his mind, but he just brushes it off, deciding to focus on the giant monster trying to kill them. With Tang Yi holding the line, the behemoth roars, still very much ready for a fight, so the white-haired girl announces her railgun is charged and unleashes a massive energy blast. While Jin Ying backs her up with a storm of razor-sharp, sonic wind blades from above. Their combined attacks slam directly into the behemoth's face with a huge impact, but their black-haired ally realizes its defense is too high for their ranged attacks to do any real damage. Seeing their bombardment fail, he decides to get personal and rushes in with his crimson energy claws, landing a flurry of brutal slashes right across the monster's armored jaw. Only for the behemoth to casually catch his arm mid-swing, stopping him dead in his tracks. The behemoth just casually tosses its captive aside, completely unimpressed by the close-quarters attack, and Xiao Hao realizes this brute is way more aggressive than the last one he fought. But just as it is about to charge again, the monster suddenly stops dead in its tracks, leaving the white-haired girl completely confused as to why it would just pause mid-battle. Jin Ying checks her scanner, confirming the monster seems exhausted and its vitals are all over the place, explaining its energy only spikes when the eye glows, meaning it is forcing itself to fight. Xiao Hao connects the dots it is internally injured, so the team decides to target the eye. With a new strategy in mind, they immediately launch another coordinated assault on its weak spot, but the behemoth roars, unleashing a barrage of red energy pods from its armored back, which then erupt into a massive, inescapable web of explosive energy beams across the canyon. The team's coordinated assault gets completely shut down by the behemoth's explosive counter, and their white-haired ally realizes the monster is predicting their moves, using its own attacks to neutralize theirs. So she cooks up a new plan on the fly, needing everyone to play their part perfectly, telling Xiao how to play bait and force the behemoth to focus entirely on him. He happily obliges, and the monster immediately takes the bait, charging up a massive fire breath. So Tang throws up another colossal ice wall to tank the incoming inferno, creating the perfect opening for Xiao Hao to strike while the beast is locked in its attack animation. He powers up a full-force beastification fist, ready to deliver some serious close-range punishment, and slams the punch right into the monster's neck, staggering the massive behemoth for a moment. Seeing the plan actually worked, their ally immediately starts charging her railgun for the follow-up shot. With the opening secured, she fires her railgun, sending a massive energy beam right at the behemoth's head, but the beast tries to pull the same trick again, firing off its explosive pods to block the attack, so she yells for Jin Ying to clear a path, who immediately unleashes a swirling wind attack to knock them aside. And her vortex clears the way just in time for the railgun blast to hit the monster dead in the eye. The shot is not fatal, but she confirms it was enough to temporarily seal the behemoth's abilities, leaving it wide open as she tells Captain Tang to step up and deliver the finishing blow. Tang happily obliges, summoning a colossal heart-piercing spear made of pure jagged ice, and he launches the massive projectile straight at the stunned monster's chest with incredible force. His subordinate smirks, completely convinced their flawless strategy is about to pay off big time. But at the last second, the behemoth suddenly moves, and Tang realizes something is very wrong. Just as Tang launches his finishing blow, he suddenly apologizes for what is about to happen, and his massive ice spear completely misses the monster, veering off course at the last second. The attack harmlessly slams into the canyon wall, leaving the behemoth totally unscathed. The white-haired girl immediately turns on Captain Winston, demanding to know what he just did, but he just smirks, holding up a strange vial as if he is controlling the whole situation. Turns out he is, because the behemoth roars, now standing behind him like a loyal pet. Winston casually faces the team, completely confident with a city-ending monster as his personal backup. He admits their plan to weaken the beast worked perfectly, giving him the opening he needed to take over. That is when she finally realizes he is the high-level mole her father has been investigating all along. He confirms the entire act was a setup to earn their trust and lead them straight into his trap. Winston gloats that this was all calculated, using the other monsters as bait to awaken the behemoth, admitting his real goal was to extract someone named Caleb, but the team was just too stubborn to die quietly. Xiao Hao demands to know why his master is so obsessed with him, clearly not flattered by the attention, but the traitor just gives the classic villain response, promising he will find out after he is dead and buried. At that exact moment, the behemoth starts burning its own life force for one last, desperate attack, so Xiao Hao tells the girls to play keep away with the monster while he goes to handle Winston personally. Winston scoffs at being called a beer anchor, deciding it is time to finally show off his true power, and he immediately unleashes a storm of jagged ice shards, forcing Xiao Hao onto the defensive. The traitor admits controlling a behemoth is draining, but he has still got plenty of fight left in him, vowing to complete his mission as he charges forward to clash with Xiao Hao in a brutal showdown. Xiao Hao barely dodges Winston's opening gambit, but the traitor's already unleashing a follow-up. And the behemoth's parting gift is a massive energy beam that slams right where he was standing, sending our boy tumbling down the canyon wall from the sheer force of the explosion, which carves out a massive crater and leaves the entire area shrouded in dust and smoke. Winston lands nearby, mocking Xiao Hao for having the guts to face him one-on-one, and he points out our boy's low energy, asking if he is just trying to speedrun his own death. Without waiting for an answer, he unleashes a wave of jagged ice spikes to pin him down, which immediately starts to freeze Xiao Hao solid, trapping him in a freezing domain. So with his opponent immobilized, Winston summons a massive ice sword for the finishing blow, only for Xiao Hao to meet the strike head-on, blocking the blade with his own crimson weapon. Their weapons clash with incredible force, locking the two fighters in a brutal power struggle. And Winston is clearly shocked that Xiao Hao can match his strength so easily, so our boy just powers up, his dark energy flaring as he starts to push the traitor back, which earns him a classic villain taunt just before a wave of shadow energy comes flying back, forcing Winston to throw up a massive wall of ice spikes to defend himself from the attack, but Xiao Hao just leaps right over the barricade, leaving the captain completely stunned. and he immediately goes for a finishing blow while Winston's guard is still down, when suddenly a massive armored beast roars, crashing their little duel with a bolt of lightning. Turns out the girls are yelling for Caleb to hurry, revealing this new monster is Winston's extraction target. Winston just smirks, admitting Zio Hao is strong but confidently declaring victory will be his. Done playing games, Zio Hao condenses his dark energy into a volatile crimson sphere and unleashes it as a spinning vortex aimed right at the overconfident traitor, which barrels across the canyon floor with raw, destructive power. But Winston just smirks, summoning a pair of massive ice gauntlets to block the attack. His icy shield intercepts the crimson blast with a deafening boom, sending shockwaves everywhere, and the two elemental forces clash in a massive explosion of light and energy. The attack punches right past him, slamming harmlessly into the canyon wall behind him. So Winston scoffs that the attack was useless, completely missing the rumbling from above his head. He finally looks up just in time to see the entire cliff face starting to crack and give way, as a massive rockslide comes crashing down, burying him under tons of stone. Winston casually bursts from the rockslide, mocking Zio Hao for thinking that would actually work, but our boy was just waiting for him to get cocky, ambushing him with a poison claw strike, which slashes deep across the traitor's back before he can even react to the trap. And as Winston screams in agony, Zio Hao reminds him there is no one left to save him. Turns out that Claw was laced with a queen wasp venom that has already reached his heart, and the best part is every time Winston uses his powers, the poison just spreads faster. Refusing to be taken prisoner, the traitor declares his undying loyalty to Green Vine and unleashes one final, desperate blast of ice energy with everything he has left, choosing to flash freeze himself solid rather than betray his organization to the team. With the fight finally over, Zio Hao coughs up blood, the strain of his own power taking its toll. With Winston frozen solid, Zio Hao finally collapses, admitting that fight took almost everything out of him. Before he can even get up, the armored monster Caleb lets out a victorious roar over the battlefield, because the massive behemoth, its life force completely spent, finally collapses into a heap on the ground. Jin Ying is stunned that the monster just stopped, while her ally realizes Caleb actually won the fight. The white-haired girl calls out to Caleb, who just stands there silently after his victory. She then turns to check on Zio Hao, who gets up and insists he is fine despite looking wrecked. Jin Ying immediately gets back to business, demanding they go grab the traitor for interrogation. But our boy just informs them Winston took his own life, choosing death over spilling any secrets. His ally grimly concludes Green Vine's loyalty is fanatical, but at least they all manage to survive. Deciding to quit while they are ahead, the team agrees to head back to HQ and rethink their reckless strategy. With Caleb completely drained from his fight, the team figures it is time to leave before more trouble arrives. But just as they are about to move, Jin Ying's scanner starts freaking out over some bizarre new readings. They look up to see a new figure descending from the sky, wondering if Green Vine's backup finally showed up, but instead, a horned, red-caped stranger lands right in front of Caleb with a furious roar. Jin Ying immediately warns everyone that this new guy's energy levels are completely, terrifyingly off the charts, while the white-haired girl just stares in absolute shock, clearly recognizing who this is. And before anyone can react, the stranger lunges at the exhausted Caleb with a blade of pure crimson energy, cutting the massive monster down in a single, devastating slash that ends the fight instantly. As the dust settles, she whispers his name in disbelief, her uncle, Peter Quinn. Zio Hao and the others are completely stunned, since Peter was supposed to have lost his mind to beastification. Peter Quinn ignores everyone else to compliment Zio Hao's potential, calling his incomplete power remarkable, and our boy is completely lost, having no clue what this monster man is even talking about. He then drops the classic villain recruitment pitch, inviting Zio Hao to help build a new world. So Zio Hao immediately asks if he has lost his mind, which is probably the right question here. His niece, Alicia, tries to intervene, yelling for her uncle to stop whatever he is planning. But Peter's eyes just glow, completely ignoring her as he focuses on the rejection. He effortlessly pins her against a rock wall with some unseen force, shutting down the interruption, but she desperately tries to get through to him, shouting that it is her, Alicia. She asks if he even remembers her, getting nothing but a cold, silent stare in return. With their ally neutralized, Jin Ying starts to panic, realizing this family reunion is a total disaster. Peter sees a reflection of his own past in Zio Hao, remembering his own descent into madness, and Zio Hao hopes Alicia can reach her uncle, just like someone once pulled him from the brink. But he immediately realizes Peter's killing intent is pure, and provoking him right now would be suicide, so Alicia steps forward anyway, desperately pleading for her uncle to come back to them, which gets her a blade straight through the shoulder for her troubles, a pretty clear no. As she asks why, he coldly calls her an inferior creature, confirming the man she knew is long gone, then follows up with a brutal slash, sending her flying across the canyon floor like a ragdoll, and she crashes hard into the ground as her teammates can only watch in absolute horror. She is left bleeding heavily from the chest, paying a steep price for that family reunion attempt, leaving Jin Ying completely terrified, realizing they are so out of their league against this guy. Jin Ying can only watch in horror as Alicia lies bleeding out on the ground, and seeing his friend get taken down sends Zio Hao into an absolute rage, his dark power flaring while Peter Quinn just stands there, completely unfazed by the kid's sudden power-up, so Zio Hao unleashes his full beastification, roaring as he transforms into a demonic form. He immediately charges Peter, who seems more impressed than worried, even complimenting his new look. Then casually blocks the furious assault with one hand, shattering Zio Hao's crimson armor on contact. Peter immediately counters with a devastating punch that slams right into Xiao Hao's chest, sending our boy flying backward from the sheer, overwhelming force of the blow, and he follows up with another brutal strike, completely dominating the one-sided fight, leaving Peter to taunt him about the massive power gap, asking if he craves this level of strength. Completely consumed by rage, Xiao Hao vows to kill Peter for what he has done to his friends, but Peter just scoffs, calling his unstable transformation a work in progress that needs more refinement. Suddenly, a massive dragon-like aberration crashes onto the battlefield with a deafening roar, and it immediately turns its attention to Peter Quinn, who seems completely unfazed by the new arrival. As Jin Ying scrambles for cover, the monster lets out another roar, dominating the entire canyon. While the ground shakes violently from the sheer force of its presence alone, the monster squares up against Peter, who just stands there completely unimpressed by the display, revealing Xiao Hao is back in human form, totally drained and wondering who just showed up. Peter ignores him, instead complimenting the monster's unseen controller on their exquisite psychic control, and he immediately offers this new player a spot in his new world, telling them to ditch the losers. The horned woman instantly rejects Peter's job offer, screaming that she is nothing like him, and from atop her monster she calls him a fraud who needs tech to control his beasts. Meanwhile, Xiao Hao is just hoping these two titans will beat each other senseless for him, revealing he is running on some experimental tech that is literally eating him alive for a power boost. At that exact moment, the massive dragon aberration suddenly collapses, completely out of juice. So Xiao Hao immediately rushes in, using a corrosive ability to absorb the monster's remaining energy. Peter just scoffs at the display, calling her power completely wasted on sentimental attachments, then walks off, promising she will eventually learn she is not part of the old humanity anymore. With the coast clear, the woman approaches another body lying motionless on the battlefield, and it is Caleb back in human form as she apologizes for not getting there sooner. A flashback reveals the horned woman was once terrified of her power, afraid she'd hurt someone close, and she even begged her brother to forget about her, telling him to stay away for his own safety, offering him one last gift before she planned to disappear from his life completely. Back in the present, Xiao Hao is still busy siphoning energy from her collapsed monster, and she screams at him to get lost, but he is too busy with his all-you-can-eat energy buffet. He just laughs, gloating that absorbing the strong is a way faster method to level up, and with his newfound rank power, he decides it is time to finish off the unconscious Caleb. He stands over the body, hands crackling with stolen energy, ready to deliver the final blow, which is when the horned woman decides she has had enough of this villain monologue and blurs into action, and she shuts him up with a brutal punch to the face, ending his little power trip instantly. The horned woman pins Xiao Hao, warning him that touching Caleb again will get him carved into pieces, and our boy is absolutely furious since that punch just cost him all the power he'd stockpiled. So he scrambles up, vowing to make both her and Caleb pay for this little humiliation, but she completely ignores his tantrum, instead giving the unconscious Caleb some kind of red energy core. With her friend stabilized, she turns to leave just as a massive demonic beast rises up behind her, which turns out to be her ride, and she casually hops on its head, ready for a grand exit just as a whole army of suited goons shows up, bowing and calling her their beast lord. As she departs with her new army, Xiao Hao reveals her name is Sandra. Back at their base, Jin Ying is anxiously watching over a recovering Caleb, who finally wakes up in the infirmary, joking that at least he was not left all alone out there. Caleb bolts upright in his infirmary bed, immediately demanding to know where Alicia is. Jin Ying is forced to deliver the grim news, confirming that Alicia is already gone, leaving him completely stunned. Turns out she is in a high-tech medical room where her vitals have completely flatlined. A doctor informs her father, the chief of staff, that her heart was destroyed and she is beyond saving. But one of his men suggests there is a last-ditch experimental device they could try. So the chief immediately orders them to get a director Jin on the line. In a core laboratory, they present a strange item, and her father asks if it is even possible to use it. The scientist explains it is a beast core that can forcibly restart her life, and the chief orders it done. But the director warns him there is a very high chance she will just turn into a monster instead. The chief of staff insists he will bear all the consequences for this incredibly desperate medical gamble, giving the final order for a robotic arm to begin the transplant, lowering the glowing beast core. The machine plunges the core directly into her chest, a procedure that is definitely not covered by insurance, and with the transplant complete, the glowing red device is now fused with her body, just waiting for a spark. A scientist confirms they are ready to flip the switch, asking for the final go-ahead on this Hail Mary play. And while Director Jin makes one last plea for sanity, her father just tells him to hit the switch anyway. So with a final grim command, the technicians activate the beast core, sealing her fate for good. Alicia's consciousness awakens in a cold, empty void, completely lost and confused about where she is, when a massive, shadowy dragon appears, a monster she thought had been destroyed a long time ago. The beast then morphs into a horrifying red entity, and she demands to know what it wants from her. The shadowy entity wastes no time, announcing its grand plan to take over Alicia's body as its new vessel, and immediately begins to consume her consciousness with a wave of dark, corrupting energy, which triggers a massive energy blast that erupts from the medical facility back in the real world. Meanwhile, another official demands to know why the chief of staff would use his own daughter for this insane experiment. While on a nearby rooftop, two allies can only watch in confusion as the situation spirals out of control. Back at the lab, Director Jin grimly confirms the experiment failed, as Alicia has fully undergone beastification, and he asks her father what he plans to do now that his daughter is a full-blown monster. But the newly transformed Alicia is not waiting for an answer, crackling with overwhelming purple energy, and she immediately unleashes a devastating beam straight at her own father, the chief of staff, who just raises a hand, ready to meet her attack with his own surprising display of power. The chief of staff counters his daughter's energy blast, revealing his own impressive smoke-based powers. And he immediately orders his subordinate to protect the scientists, planning to handle this family drama solo. He sternly warns everyone not to interfere with what is about to happen, declaring he will take full responsibility for his daughter's rampage as he draws a katana. The newly transformed Song Rui just stares back, her horned mask glowing as purple energy crackles around her while her father meets her gaze with a grim, determined expression, ready for the inevitable fight. She immediately unleashes another, even bigger barrage of devastating energy blasts, which erupts in a massive explosion that completely blows out the top of the entire building. On a nearby rooftop, Xiao Hao and Jin Ying are completely baffled by the sudden fireworks display, and Jin Ying points out the monstrous figure is Song Rui, leaving Xiao Hao stunned by her transformation. Inside the wrecked lab, the transformed Song Rui unleashes a storm of purple energy shards. But her father immediately orders Xiao Hao and Jin Ying to stand clear of the family drama, reminding them this is an order, not a suggestion, as he deflects her furious barrage. And with his katana finally drawn, he prepares to face his daughter's monstrous form head-on. The chief of staff then leaps across the ruined facility with incredible speed, closing the distance in a flash as he weaves through her chaotic energy attacks. Leaving Director Jin to realize his old friend was hiding some serious power this whole time. He successfully breaks through her defenses, placing a hand on her shoulder to stop the rampage, and with a surprisingly gentle voice he tells her that everything is going to be okay now. Leaving Song Rui to look up, her glowing red eyes showing a flicker of confusion. The monstrous mask cracks apart, revealing Song Rui's face as she finally snaps back to reality. Her friends are completely relieved it worked, with Jin Ying cheering that she is finally free. Xiao Hao just smirks, knowing a father would never truly bring himself to harm his own daughter. The chief of staff pulls her into a hug, comforting her as she apologizes for everything that happened. He tells her it is okay to cry, letting her finally release all the pain she has been holding in. Meanwhile, Sandra storms into an office, demanding her associate stop all capture operations immediately. The executive pushes back, claiming the company's interests are too important for him to act alone, so she gets right in his face, warning him that if Caleb gets hurt, the consequences will be severe. As she leaves, he scoffs that she is just a spoiled weapon for their beast control research. Back at the base, a recovered Song Rui sits quietly on a bench, finally at peace after the ordeal. Xiao Hao finds Song Rui brooding on a bench and offers her a drink, telling her this look does not suit her. And she admits she has just been thinking about her father after everything that happened. Turns out the chief has been sleeping at his office for days, completely buried in work, and she feels helpless, knowing her uncle's betrayal and her own condition are the cause of it all. Xiao Hao is genuinely surprised, admitting he just assumed she was some kind of all-knowing super genius, which makes her wonder if that is really how he sees her. So he immediately lists off how she detained him and forced him onto the team, earning a quick shut up. He then gives her a surprisingly sincere pep talk, calling her resilient and urging her to use her strength, and his words actually seem to get through as she promises to think about his advice. 1 week later, the scene shifts to a meeting room back at the Special Response Unit HQ. Xiao Hao and the squad get an emergency summons, which means something has gone spectacularly wrong. In the briefing room, a commander explains the northern wastelands are already crawling with monsters, and their top military units are busy holding a defensive line, so no help is coming from them. But unfortunately for everyone, a much bigger problem just waltzed right past their defenses, revealing a Calamity-class Titan Worm King has breached the line and is now nesting nearby. If that thing finishes its reproduction cycle, he warns, the entire region is basically doomed. The room collectively panics, since the last big incident was nothing compared to a Calamity-class threat. To make matters worse, their elite backup unit will not be arriving for at least 2 days, so High Command needs a team to go in now and stop it, and he asks for volunteers, which is met with the deafening silence of people who would very much like to stay alive. Just as everyone's ready to write their wills, one of the instructors actually volunteers for the suicide mission. But Caleb immediately grabs him, refusing to let his mentor walk into a guaranteed death trap, and declares this is his fight since he needs to face impossible odds to get stronger, obviously. He argues the real danger is back at HQ, so his instructor needs to stay and protect the chief of staff, which settles the debate, and the commander immediately summons Caleb to his office for a little chat. Turns out with Song Rui out of commission, he is promoting Caleb to captain of a new special task force, giving him the classic do great things but also please do not die speech before sending him off. Later, while Caleb is studying the mission map in the briefing room, he gets an unexpected visitor. Jin Ying bursts in, playfully saluting Captain Caleb and asking if she is late for the party. He tells her to knock it off, but she just smirks and asks how his new piece of equipment is working out. She teases Caleb that she must be his most important partner, which is probably not far from the truth when 2 more squad members arrive, happily saluting their newly promoted Captain Caleb. One of them, Randy, says they have been training hard too, clearly proud of their own progress. So Caleb tells everyone to drop the formalities, ready to get this suicide mission started like old times. But Jin Ying immediately asks if they are going to wait for Alicia before they head out, which makes the whole mood suddenly very awkward and serious for a moment, as Caleb explains she needs more time to recover after, turning into a monster. He then tries to get things moving, calling out that someone is being way too slow. Only for Alicia to reveal she was there the whole time, looking cooler than ever by their ride. The team is completely relieved, and Caleb happily admits he knew she'd make it after all. Alicia announces she is officially cleared for duty and ready to join Caleb's little suicide mission, and he just smiles, happy to see she is back in fighting shape after her whole monster episode. Randy tries to volunteer for driving duty, but Caleb immediately hands the keys over to Alicia instead, who is already behind the wheel, telling the rest of the team to hurry up and get in. With the whole squad packed in, their armored transport peels out of the base, heading for the wastelands. On the road, Caleb checks in one last time, making sure she is actually ready for what is coming, but she shuts that down fast, declaring with total confidence that she is done being lost. Meanwhile, their target, a massive insectoid monstrosity, is already busy making more little nightmares. As back at HQ, the commander starts laying out the grim details of their upcoming bug hunt, revealing the Titan Bug King is nesting in the jungle, surrounded by its own personal army of guards. Meanwhile, a Green Vine council member reveals the Bug King excretes a crystal tissue vital for their research, but he knows the military will be guarding it, making a direct confrontation completely out of the question. So the real mission is a stealth op: steal the tissue during the chaos and leave no trace behind. He entrusts this little heist to his top-rank operative, a masked agent known as Thousand Faces. Back in the jungle, Caleb's team rolls up in their transport, but the mission immediately hits a snag as Alicia senses something is very wrong, putting the entire squad on high alert for an ambush. Caleb grimly confirms the situation is worse than expected and orders everyone to ditch the vehicle, warning them the jungle is now a monster-infested fog bank where they need to stick together to survive. With visibility at zero, Caleb asks Jin Ying to clear the air, but she admits the fog is too thick, and just as she says that, he stops the team cold, sensing something is coming right for them. Right on cue, the ambush kicks off with a storm of massive spikes raining down from the fog, and the team barely dodges the opening salvo as the projectiles slam into the ground around them. Caleb confirms everyone's fine, but admits he cannot pinpoint their attacker in the dense mist, which is when a massive insectoid nightmare decides to introduce itself by lunging out of the gloom. Its arrival instantly clears the air, revealing the fog was just the Bug King's crimson energy, and Alicia realizes this thing absorbed the fog to mark its territory, basically calling dibs on killing them. Jin Ying's scanner confirms it is a behemoth-class hive tyrant, likely one of the king's personal bodyguards, so deciding they do not have time for this, Caleb powers up and orders the team to prepare for battle. His grand strategy is to just unload everything they have and take this thing down as fast as possible. While back at the Titan Hive, another behemoth-class guard is approached by a mysterious group of cloaked agents. Meanwhile, the cloaked agents run into their own bodyguard, a beastman named Bloodhowl, vowing to kill them, but their masked leader immediately tells his grunts to stand down, clearly not wanting to pick this fight. He points out another behemoth guard, reminding them the real mission is to steal their prize and bail. Back with Caleb's team, their own hive tyrant is roaring, more than ready for an all-out brawl. Jin Ying kicks things off, unleashing a swirling vortex of wind to get the party started, and her storm's blessing envelops the entire squad in a blue aura for a serious combat boost. With the buff active, Caleb gives the order for a full frontal assault, leading the charge himself. He rushes the monster head-on, his crimson claw ready to rip right through its tough hide, while Randy follows up, using a hardening ability to slam his fist into the ground for a shockwave. And Alicia brings up the rear, charging her railgun for a massive electromagnetic annihilation blast. Alicia's railgun blast slams right into the Hive Tyrant's face for a direct hit, while Caleb follows up with his Crimson Claw and Randy's shockwave hits from below, and their combined Storm Flurry attack absolutely shreds the monster into a bloody mess. The team celebrates their surprisingly easy win, but Yan Hao immediately senses something is very wrong. Yelling for everyone to watch out as something starts to burst from the monster's corpse, and back at Green Vine HQ, Sandra gets some urgent news from an associate about a council decision. He confirms this whole mess has everything to do with Yan Hao, much to her obvious annoyance, so after a bit of pointless teasing, she demands he just get to the point already. He reveals the military has sent Yan Hao's squad to intercept the Titan Bug King, which is an S-rank monster, making this whole thing a suicide mission to test the rookie's limits. Sandra's associate explains the council's plan, but she immediately accuses him of lying to her, so he clarifies that Xiao Hao is only valuable alive, meaning killing him was never the real goal. She cuts right to the chase, knowing he is telling her all this because he needs a favor, and the associate offers a deal, promising a good result for everyone if she just cooperates. Sandra agrees, but only because she is determined to stop her brother from throwing his life away. Back in the jungle, that easy win hatches into a massive, terrifying moth monster, and its wings unleash some kind of psychic wave, forcing Caleb to shield himself from the blast. The mental assault hits him hard, and Jin Ying yells for everyone not to look at the wing patterns, so Caleb grits his teeth, fighting to break free from the monster's paralyzing psychic grip. And he unleashes a massive burst of crimson energy, shattering the mental illusion completely. The psychic attack plunges Caleb into his own mind, forcing him to face his dark inner self, while Alicia is trapped in a horrifying vision of her monstrous uncle, Peter Quinn, and Jin Ying in a stunning display of priorities, is just geeking out over the attack's data signature, even trying to chase down and analyze her own hallucination like it is a rare specimen. Back in reality, the rest of the squad is completely paralyzed, lost in their own mental traps, but Randy starts to fight back, clutching his head as the psychic assault hammers his mind, and he screams for the others to snap out of it while the moth monster keeps up the pressure. Wondering why he is the only one waking up until his lieutenant offers a grim explanation, turns out, the stronger your mind and the deeper your obsessions, the easier you are to trap. So with his powerful teammates compromised, Randy orders a call for backup and prepares to fight alone. With his team paralyzed, the moth monster unleashes a volley of psychic orbs to finish the job, but Caleb just stands there, completely lost in his own mind as the attacks land all around him. Randy tries to physically snap him out of it, only to get blasted back by the psychic energy, and he quickly realizes a frontal assault is useless, they have to wake up on their own. Inside his head, Caleb's inner demon taunts him, asking if it is exhausting to suppress his true form, and the crimson-clad doppelganger immediately lunges forward, slashing with its monstrous claws, attempting to corrupt him with some kind of shadow infiltration to take over his mind. Caleb grits his teeth, desperately fighting back against the mental takeover, as his dark self tempts him to just embrace the power like Peter, Quinn, and Sandra did. But he finally counters, blocking the punch and declaring he is nothing like those monsters. His inner demon mocks him for being afraid, claiming to know his every single move, but Caleb just screams back, vowing he will never, ever become that twisted monster. The doppelganger does not care, lunging forward with its claws out to end the debate by force, and its crimson armor flares as it closes in for the final, corrupting blow. So Caleb meets the assault with his own power, asking if his dark side is trying to get them both killed. He lands a solid punch, declaring he fights to find Sandra and protect others from his fate, and his conviction is so strong it literally shatters the inner demon, ending the mental battle. Meanwhile, Alicia is still facing her own nightmare, as Peter Quinn calls her beliefs completely worthless, and she admits his strength is terrifying enough to make anyone just give up hope. But remembering she felt anger, not fear, she unleashes her own power to shatter the illusion. She tells the illusion of her uncle he is nothing but a traitor, refusing to let the nightmare win, and vows that one day, she will be strong enough to drag the real him back from the brink herself. Meanwhile, she and Caleb realize they are trapped in a shared subconscious that needs to be broken from both sides. So while she unleashes her own power to fight from within, Caleb is still battling his inner demon. He knows if he does not regain consciousness soon, his entire team is about to get wiped out for good, but right on cue, the entire mental prison starts to crack as Jin Ying announces her attack is ready. Caleb immediately recognizes her power, realizing their backup has finally arrived from the real world. And with a final push from both inside and out, the psychic illusion completely shatters around them. Back in the jungle, a massive wind vortex slams right into the moth monster, breaking its concentration, and Jin Ying smirks, having woken up just in time to save everyone with her pre-charged attack. With the mind games finally over, Caleb asks Alicia to pinpoint the moth's location for the finisher. And she confirms the wing patterns are the source, lining up a shot to disable its psychic powers permanently. She gets a clean lock on the monster, which is still struggling inside Jin Ying's wind vortex, while Jin Ying prepares her own domain release to really pile on the pressure. Alicia does not hesitate, unleashing a massive purple energy beam straight at the trapped monster, which completely obliterates it, letting the team finally make a clean getaway in their transport. Inside, Caleb is out cold, absorbing the Beast Core's power while Jin Ying geeks out over the new data. Alicia is a bit more concerned, wondering if absorbing a behemoth-class core is actually a good idea. But Randy just smirks, explaining Caleb leveled up by conquering his inner demons literally. Right on cue, Caleb's eyes snap open, warning them to slow down because they have guests up ahead. Caleb immediately clarifies the approaching threat is not monsters, but humans, much to his team's surprise. Right on cue, a horned beastman leaps from the woods, smashing the ground right in front of their ride, and he lands with enough force to completely shatter the road, making it very clear they are not passing. The guy, Bloodhowl, roars that this road is officially closed to any and all military trash. Caleb's team steps out, demanding to know who he is and why he is so eager to pick a fight. Suddenly, another voice mocks Bloodhowl from the shadows, claiming the egg sack is theirs for the taking, but the beastman completely ignores them, lunging straight for Caleb with pure killing intent. After Caleb effortlessly dodges the attack, Bloodhowl scoffs that just running will not stop the Bug King. He throws a furious punch, screaming for Caleb to die as Jin Ying yells out a warning. Only for Caleb to casually catch the fist with one hand, completely unimpressed by the assault. Caleb just smirks, telling the beastman his strength is cute, but that is about all he has got, then effortlessly tosses Bloodhowl aside like a sack of potatoes, completely shutting down the ambush before melting into the ground with a shadow stealth move, leaving the guy totally confused only to reappear right in his face with a punch that sends him flying backward. He mocks the guy for even trying to stop them with such a pathetic level of skill. While up in the trees, a hidden observer realizes Yan Hao is already touching S-rank power. With the beastman down for the count, Caleb casually orders his team to just tie him up and toss him in the trunk. Having dealt with that little distraction, the team finally arrives at a massive, unnatural crater, which is crawling with all sorts of insectoid nightmares guarding a central hive structure. and they realize they have found the Bug King's nest, just moments before it unleashes an absolute disaster. Caleb immediately takes charge, ordering Alicia to disrupt the bug spawning with her railgun, and she wastes no time, unleashing a massive electromagnetic pulse to thin out the horde. The blast tears through the front lines, but there are still way too many monsters to handle head-on, so their strategy is simple: hit-and-run tactics to distract the swarm without getting bogged down. Jin Ying unleashes a powerful wind blast, taking down one of the flying scouts with ease, but another monster immediately counters, firing a concentrated energy beam right at them. Randy steps up, throwing up a hardened shield to tank the incoming blast for the team, and he barely holds his ground as the beam slams into his defenses with incredible force. The attack erupts in a massive explosion, but their formation somehow manages to hold together. 2 hours later, they are still fighting a running battle, desperately waiting for the Chief of Staff's backup to arrive. Just as they are holding on, the bug gives up spawning, deciding to just kill them directly instead, and a massive behemoth-class monster emerges, ready to wipe the floor with the exhausted squad. But right as it lunges, a storm of purple energy blades slices through the air to intercept, leaving Caleb and the others completely stunned by their last-minute, very convenient rescue. Turns out their backup is the Chief of Staff himself, who casually strolls in like he is late for tea, and the team can only watch in awe as his S-rank power effortlessly tears into the massive monster, then follows up with a barrage of ice-like projectiles, showing them the real definition of overkill. The attack connects in a series of massive explosions, completely engulfing the bug in a fiery blast. While more reinforcements arrive, with their leader ordering them to keep the swarm off the chief's back, the new commander turns out to be the chief's brother, who immediately joins the fray against the smaller monsters. The behemoth roars back, ready for round 2, but the chief is already charging up another attack, and Alicia worries her father's body cannot handle the strain as he gathers a terrifying amount of energy. Then unleashes a storm of crystalline spikes, a move that looks suspiciously like an S-rank finisher which completely skewers the behemoth, pinning the massive bug in place with dozens of energy lances. But the effort clearly takes a toll, and the chief admits he can only hold it for an hour at most, just as a helicopter arrives on the scene, though it is not the backup they were expecting. Instead, a group of well-dressed strangers steps out, casually complimenting them on the spectacular fight, and their leader Hong Zhangnan thanks them for weakening the bug before telling them to get lost. The chief's brother instantly recognizes the guy, while the chief demands an explanation for the intrusion, and Hong reveals this was his plan all along, luring the bug here so they'd tire it out for him. The chief's brother calls out Hong's insane plan, since letting the bug lay eggs will doom the entire region, but Hong just scoffs that a few sacrifices are fine for the greater good, revealing his plan was to make super soldiers. He then shoves a cloaked girl forward, announcing it is time for the real main character to make her debut, revealing a red-haired woman with a single horn, looking disturbingly calm amid all the chaos. Xiao Hao absolutely loses it, recognizing her as Xiaoxu and demanding to know what Hong did to his sister. Her eyes snap open, glowing with a terrifying red energy as she activates some kind of psychic power, and a massive winged beast materializes from thin air, roaring as it prepares to attack. The chief's brother rushes in to stop her, but she casually blocks his attack with a psychic barrier, then unleashes a massive force wave, blasting both him and Xiao Hao away without even flinching. With everyone neutralized, Xiaoxu stands triumphant, her monstrous shadow looming over the entire battlefield. Xiaoxu calmly rides her summoned Nightmare, which looks more than ready to start the apocalypse, her eyes completely dead as she gives the order, clearly just a puppet for Hong's grand plan. With a single gesture, she sends her winged beast lunging straight for the immobilized behemoth, and the massive creature roars, preparing to free the even bigger bug for a city-wide buffet. Her monster slams right into the crystalline prison, immediately starting to shatter the chief's hard work, while Hong is just loving the show, announcing it is time for his queen to finally be unleashed. Alicia realizes her father's containment is about to fail as massive cracks spread through the barrier, so Xiao Hao makes a desperate dash forward, determined to reach his sister no matter the cost. He screams at the chief to open a path, convinced he can wake her up, but his team calls him insane, insisting he is the only one who can reach her, begging for a chance to save his little sister. Against all odds, the chief of staff actually agrees to the insane plan, giving Xiao Hao a grim nod, and he immediately orders his men to create a 3-second opening for the kid's suicide run, so his brother and the squad instantly unleash a full-scale assault to draw all the enemy fire, giving Xiao Hao the perfect chance to bolt forward right through the heart of the chaos, while Alicia can only watch in disbelief, clearly thinking this is the dumbest idea she has ever seen. But Xiao Hao just powers up, crackling with energy as he closes the distance to his sister, desperately calling out her name in a last-ditch effort to break through the mind control, and he actually makes it, standing right before her, telling her he has finally found her. Though while this family reunion is happening, her summoned beast is still shredding the containment field, leaving Hong to just scoff from the sidelines, mocking their pathetic struggle like he is watching a movie. As the diversionary battle rages on, the chief's brother watches with a disturbingly smug grin while a mysterious agent leaps into the fray, dodging a volley of shadowy spikes with ease, and one of the larger beasts retaliates, unleashing a massive energy beam from its maw. which is blocked by a soldier, though a masked opponent just mocks his defensive stance. At that moment, another woman joins the fight, unleashing a blinding flash of holy light, and her attack erupts outwards, forcing everyone nearby to brace for the massive shockwave. Nearby, a silver-haired woman lays down, covering fire with twin energy pistols, but she suddenly powers up, screaming for her target to stop whatever he is doing right now. And a storm of purple energy erupts from her fist, forming a flurry of deadly energy blades. The masked agent is completely stunned as her attack slams into him, shocked by her hidden power. The silver-haired woman is dead set on her mission, vowing to stop anyone from interfering with Xiao Hao, while the rest of the battlefield is a complete free-for-all, with soldiers desperately fending off shadowy beasts. And even the new arrivals are forced on the defensive, barely blocking a massive purple energy blast. Back with the main event, Xiaoxu's summoned nightmare swings down to crush Xiao Hao, but it stops just inches from his face, as she is clearly fighting her own mind control orders, screaming in agony as the psychic programming starts to seriously crack under the strain. And Xiao Hao immediately realizes Hong's grip on her is finally starting to loosen up. Her mind is a total war zone, torn between telling him to run and the order to just devour him, leaving Xiao Hao sweating bullets, desperately trying to figure out how to break the spell for good when he spots the beast's core, realizing that is the key to severing her connection to the monster. Ignoring everyone's warnings, Xiao Hao makes a desperate sprint, determined to sever his sister's connection. And the silver-haired woman can only scream that it is suicide as he leaps toward the monster's core. He powers up midair, ready to meet the summoned nightmare head-on with everything he has got, but the beast immediately lunges down to intercept, planning to crush him before he even gets close. It slams its massive claw into the ground, creating a huge crater right where he was standing, only to roar in agony as Xiao Hao somehow gets inside its guard and makes contact with the core. Gritting his teeth against the pressure, he starts prying the glowing orb right out of its chest. With his hands wrapped around the power source, he prepares to rip it out by sheer force, and with a final agonizing scream, he tears the core free in a blast of raw, corrupting energy. The psychic feedback hits Xiaoxu instantly, and she cries out as the mind control link finally shatters. Instead of destroying the core, Xiao Hao starts absorbing its raw power, leaving a masked agent stunned. And the corrupting energy immediately floods his mind with the vision of a terrifying, shadowy beast, but he fights back with everything he has, screaming that he refuses to be controlled, and his sheer willpower causes Xiaoxu's summoned nightmare to completely disintegrate into nothing. So with the monster gone, he makes a final, desperate leap towards his sister, reaching her and promising that he will never let her suffer like this ever again. And his words finally break through the haze as she looks up with a flicker of recognition, while he gently wipes a tear from her face, his own expression bloodied but relieved, leaving the silver-haired woman and Jin Ying to watch the reunion, completely moved by the moment, and Hong Jiangnan can only stare in disbelief, realizing his perfect weapon has just been taken from him. With the immediate threat gone, the adrenaline finally wears off for Xiao Hao, and he collapses from pure exhaustion after pushing himself way past his limits. Xiaoxu screams his name, rushing forward to catch him before he hits the ground, and her concern for him completely shatters the last of Hong's mental shackles. She turns on Hong's crew, absolutely livid that they dared use her against her own brother, which is the perfect cue for a couple of agents to try and make a very quiet exit, but Xiaoxu is not having it, vowing that not a single one of them is getting away. She unleashes a massive, omnidirectional storm of psychic energy projectiles, forcing the masked agent to throw up a desperate barrier just to survive the initial blast, while the rest of the squad scrambles, realizing their perfect weapon has officially turned on them. With his plan in shambles, Hong Jiangnan and his crew make a desperate break for their escape chopper, but a massive shadow beast erupts from the ground, completely cutting off their only exit. His remaining agents can only watch in terror as the shadowy attack closes in on them, forcing Hong and his associate to dive for cover as the tendrils slam down hard. Turns out the source of the chaos is a powerful white-haired beastman with a serious grudge. Meanwhile, the chief's brother watches from a distance, calling this a perfect chance for his enemies to self-destruct. He then addresses the beastman as Zhao, disappointed he has become this monstrous creature. And Zhao just grins back, sarcastically thanking the guy for being the reason he is in this form. The brother admits he was responsible for letting Zhao and someone named Xiori explore some ruins back then, but Zhao calls his new power a perfect evolution, trying to recruit his old commander to his side. The silver-haired woman screams for her ally to snap out of it, refusing to let the crimson fog take him. While Sandra scoffs at Zhao's interference, deciding she will just clear out the military grunts herself. Their new opponent immediately flexes his power, summoning a peak S-rank skeletal nightmare to join the party. So the chief's brother orders his subordinate and Sandra to launch a desperate joint attack, but while they charge, the girls struggle to drag an unconscious and literally burning up Xiao Hao away. Zhao immediately intercepts their charge, unleashing a vicious volley of crimson energy blades to stop them, and the brother's subordinate throws up a desperate energy shield, just barely managing to block the barrage. Seeing her chance, Sandra unleashes her own power, forming a massive orb of purple destructive energy. Her attack slams into Zhao, who throws up his own crimson power to meet the blast head-on. And their powers collide in a massive shockwave, engulfing Zhao in the raw, destructive energy. While the main event rages on, Sandra finds herself facing down Zhao's entire personal army of monsters, and their master is more than ready for a fight, unleashing his crimson power to overwhelm the battlefield. Meanwhile, the silver-haired woman is panicking over Xiao Hao, who is still unconscious and literally on fire, so Xiaoxu decides to risk it all, trying to force him awake with her own energy. Her friend immediately warns her that her own body is starting to mutate under the immense strain, but Xiaoxu insists she cannot worry about that now, just as the chief's brother braces for Zhao's assault. At that exact moment, Sandra orders one of her summoned beasts to fire a massive energy beam, but Zhao casually steps in front of his old commander, tanking the blast without even flinching. He then mocks Sandra, pointing out that her power of manipulation is clearly incomplete and failing her, and though the chief's brother asks if she is okay, she just coolly says she is perfectly fine. Sandra unleashes a massive blue energy bomb, clearly done playing games with this guy, and her ally immediately matches her, launching his own orange energy blast for a pincer attack, their attacks screaming through the air, converging right on their impossibly smug target. But Zhao just scoffs, daring them to hit him before lunging right into the blast zone, meeting their combined power head-on and triggering a cataclysmic explosion of raw energy. The resulting shockwave rips across the battlefield, sending both attackers flying backwards. When the dust settles, Sandra is coughing while her ally is completely floored, and Zhao is fine, his crimson aura flaring up as he looms over the downed soldier, declaring the fight officially over. Then crimson tendrils erupt from the ground, instantly trapping the soldier and the silver-haired woman, leaving Zhao to smirk, having neutralized two of his biggest threats in a single move. With his main threats neutralized, Zhao unleashes a massive crimson energy wave to finish the job, which forms into a monstrous shadow maw, lunging right as Xiao Hao finally wakes up, and Xiaoxu is horrified, realizing the Bug King's aura is now radiating from her brother. But Xiao Hao just smirks, reassuring everyone he is still in control of his inner demon for now. Zhao is absolutely ecstatic, declaring Xiao Hao's forced S-rank breakthrough makes them kindred spirits, though our boy immediately rejects the offer, saying he has no interest in becoming a monster. His new rival just scoffs, calling it the price of evolution and mocking him for lacking ambition, then decides it is time for another lesson, summoning a storm of deadly crimson blades. And Sandra can only scream for her brother as the projectiles scream towards him, but Xiao Hao, now sporting a monstrous crimson claw, just casually bats the entire volley aside. Seeing her chance, Sandra and her ally decide to jump in and attack Zhao together, and the subordinate rushes forward, clashing with the Beastman in a massive shockwave of power while Sandra prepares her own energy blast from above, trying to set up a pincer attack. But Zhao just scoffs that they are in the way, unleashing a crimson wave to swat them aside. He turns his full attention back to Xiao Hao, demanding our boy show him his real strength. The Beastman unleashes a brutal flurry of crimson energy strikes, yelling that it is still not enough, and Xiao Hao gets absolutely hammered, barely managing to block the relentless assault. But just as Zhao goes for another blow, Xiao Hao catches his arm, finally finding an opening. He smirks, having finally caught his opponent, and starts charging up a counter of his own, unleashing a massive punch he says is for Song Rui, slamming it right into Zhao's face. Xiao Hao's punch connects, sending Zhao rocketing backwards in a massive crimson blast, and he hits the ground coughing but is actually impressed, loving the kind of power he is seeing. He then immediately backpedals, claiming he is too tired to continue and will let our boy live for now. But while he is busy with his villain's speech, the silver-haired woman unleashes a massive burst of purple energy which completely shatters her restraints, leaving Zhao absolutely stunned by the sudden power-up. Turns out the trapped soldier is her uncle, and she is not letting him get taken out today, while Xiao Hao is not letting Zhao just walk away, charging up a swirling orb of his own monstrous power. He admits this energy once scared him, but now it is something he is obsessed with controlling. And if this is the power he has been given, then he is going to use all of it, unleashing the massive energy bomb straight at Zhao to finish this fight for good. Xiao Hao unleashes the full force of his monstrous power, putting everything into one final decisive blast, and Zhao can only scream as the overwhelming energy wave slams right into him, triggering a cataclysmic explosion that completely engulfs the entire battlefield in light. When the dust settles, Zhao is somehow still standing, his monstrous form completely gone. A quick flashback reveals a moment of regret, apologizing to his brother for the trouble he has caused. And with the battle finally over, the silver-haired woman breaks down in tears of pure relief. The military commander officially declares the mission a success, and the whole squad erupts in cheers. Turns out they stopped the Bug King, captured Zhao, and completely crushed Green Vine's entire operation. Sometime later, Xiao Hao learns the new recruits doubt him since he has dropped back down to B rank, but he is stabilizing on Bug King meds and is already trying to negotiate a well-deserved raise. With the mission finally wrapped, Xiao Hao tells his instructor he is heading home to see Xiaoxu, and he walks in to find her cooking, but she immediately drops the news that they have a guest. That guest turns out to be the silver-haired girl, who happily announces she is here to mooch a free meal, since she is mad at her dad for not letting her see her uncle and is boycotting his fancy feast. At the table, she immediately calls out his new instructor Gig, asking why the recruits already do not respect him, and he is shocked she knows, only to find out the blonde twin-tail girl has been spilling all the tea. Despite the friendly interrogation, the three of them actually manage to have a pretty wholesome dinner together. Later, she gets ready to leave, admitting her dad will send a citywide search party if she is not home soon, so Xiaoxu insists her brother should walk Sister Ruri home because it is so dangerous out, and he just scoffs that she could beat him up right before his back completely gives out from the strain. While walking Ruarui home, she sincerely thanks Zio Hao for helping save her uncle, but he just shrugs it off. She gets a little annoyed he cannot just take a compliment, then asks if he thinks her uncle will recover. With total confidence, he tells her not to worry, reassuring her that everything will be fine in time. At that exact moment, a shooting star streaks across the night sky, catching both of their attentions. Ruarui gets incredibly excited, immediately pulling out a communicator to tell Zioxu about the amazing sight, which earns Zio Hao a scolding from his sister for texting her instead of focusing on his date.